Creepshowa at this point is a shell of their former self, a content creator who doesn't stand by the morals they upheld in their videos, allegedly stalked an individual in private, and was degrading various individuals they were supposed to be associated with on lolcow while pretending to be their friends. In the past, I've made various videos about Creepshowa, explaining my opinion on these situations and providing the evidence so an audience could understand what exactly happened. But I feel like splitting this situation into so many different videos makes it confusing to follow and means it's harder for the average viewer to understand all of the claims, which videos they've already seen, and get all the information in a concise and simple format. So I decided I was going to, as an interesting change of pace, create this video, which is a mashup of various other videos I've made, edited down and compiled into the raw, most important information for a new audience and for an old audience who wasn't completely informed, to explain the situation towards you. And if videos like this do well, I may make other videos in the same style as this, using footage from various situations I've covered in the past to create a longer form video explaining the entire situation to an audience. With that being said, if you are new to the channel, I would appreciate subscribing. I'm aiming for 100,000 subscribers in the next few months. We are ridiculously close to that goal, so if you're watching this, do scroll down below and check if you're subscribed, because YouTube does unsubscribe you, and I would appreciate if you could subscribe. And also, as of this video going up, I will be streaming on Twitch, so if you could go check that out and click follow to help me get more followers than Hopeless Peaches, that would mean a lot. I can't have them being more successful than me. Thank you, and with that being said, let's get right into it. In the wake of the discovery of the posts that are apparently Creepshowa on lolcow.farm, a lot of people put their skeptic eyes on Creepshowa to see what she had to say, and Creepshowa came back with a incredible community post where she just breaks down everything with her... I'm not even going to pretend for a second that this response was good in any way. So, at one point in this response, she says that her IP address was stolen through an email discussion, and from that point, it was spoofed to make a bunch of posts on lolcow farm anonymously that no one would know about or know that it came from Creepshow's PC, while they tried to frame Creepshow, which makes absolutely no sense. Why would they post anonymously on Creepshow's IP to frame Creepshow? But also, that's simply not how it works. You can't just steal someone's IP from the internet or from an email, especially an email that I'm pretty sure is public, and then somehow spoof your IP to be that IP, and then post from that IP without there being any signs that that IP isn't the actual IP that's these posts are being sent from. And apparently this has been happening for 3 years. Shannon has apparently had the same IP for 3 years, otherwise this person has got multiple of her IPs across 3 years, which makes absolutely no sense. There's no possible or plausible way that this could possibly happen. And then Shannon follows up saying that she'll handle this all in private and may take it legal, but that doesn't help anybody. This whole drama is a public situation, and you need to give people the proof they want to see. Nobody wants this to be ended privately, and it seems like a way for Shannon to just quietly get herself out of this situation without having to deal with any more of the whole backlash. And I'm just going to mention really quickly, because you may know I have terrible experiences with John Swan in the past. This kind of sounds like the autistic 12-year-old cousin to me. just a viewpoint, but... Okay, but now I've got Shannon's response out of the way, let's go through how apparently it was proven that it was Shannon. So, you can see here, this post from admins on lolcow that have posted this. This is a screenshot of Shannon saying that she no longer looks at lolcow, which shows that in the past she had. This is before she deleted her Twitter, and as such, this is a relatively old screenshot, but it still does confirm that Shannon has been using lolcow at some point, and through this post, they say, "We've decided to compile Shannon's post history after she escalated her behavior by sharing her sister's social media in order to deflect from criticism towards herself. Beyond that, she has anonymously been promoting her videos and Patreon/YouTube membership to farmers, and making posts about herself to either white knight or insult herself." And they furthermore mentioned that lolcow.farm has always had a policy of revealing post histories of users who go to great lengths to use lolcow farm to propel their online presence. Leading to one very in-depth and hugely informative thread of posts that they link, where there's like 300 of them, and they highlight from 2018 to 2021 all of the things that Shannon has been saying on this forum. But you'll probably be questioning how they know it's Shannon. You'll probably be like, well, how could they prove it was Shannon? Well, given that Shannon claims that someone else had her IP and had been making these posts, it should be very obvious how lolcow.farms caught her. So, there are things called cookies on your PC. Now, these cookies are always personalized and individualized, meaning that no one else will have the same cookies as you. However, apparently according to this anonymous poster, these cookies did line up. Also, you can see this post from lolcow.farms. An anonymous admin says, Shannon's IP accurately reflects her different locations and the device models, phone, laptop, etc. she has been known to use. We also have additional data that we don't want to divulge, but you're welcome to look at some of our past outings to see how we proceed. And they then follow up by talking about her recent response, where she tried to excuse all of this as someone else on her IP. This says, her explanation only proves that she can't deny our legitimacy. The implication that nearly 300 posts over the span of 2.5 years all came from one single spoofed IP is ridiculous. Shannon hasn't pointed out which singular IP she's confirming as her post history because she's too fucking stupid to realize that she's just implicitly confirmed her entire post history. At the same time, she expects us to believe that one IP was spoofed to frame her. Is she going to claim all the other IPs in the post history is spoofed now too? She knows she's fucked up, otherwise her defense wouldn't be, it was my device information and IP, but I was framed. And this raises some fair points, to be completely honest. It seems kinda outlandish of Shannon to somehow claim that only one IP was spoofed, and yet they've somehow made all of these posts, or somehow all of her different IPs across 3 years have somehow been spoofed and posted from, matching up with her devices, models, everything. And while we can't confirm their claim as 100% true, as obviously they haven't showed specific evidence to show the IPs linking up, again this is coming from the reputable source of the people behind lolcow forums, and as far as I'm aware, every one of their other outings has apparently been correct. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, they seem to all add up. But let's touch on that one thing that they mention in particular, where they mention that Shannon had doxed her sister to try and get criticism off of her back. Now, here's a post on screen where Shannon is writing anonymously, claiming, in reference to herself, that her sister had blocked her, but speaking in third person, like, oh, her sister had blocked Shannon, and then the person Shannon claims to not be her says that they somehow found Shannon's sister's Twitter from a story time, and as such, decided to share it here. Now, if you ask me, this is absolutely outlandish. It seems implausible to me that Shannon would somehow have her sister's private Twitter, which I checked was privatized, somehow linked to one of her videos, and nobody had discovered it. This account had like 200 followers. There's no way that Shannon had this in a video. It would have way more followers than that, or it wouldn't have been discovered at all. This is obvious that Shannon had likely just leaked her sister's account to try and get the backlash off of her. And here's where we get to all of the slimy behavior from Shannon. Now, you'll see from now on that all the posts from Shannon will have "this is not okay" under them. That's in reference to her millions of titles and that sort of thing. And basically, it's just so you know which ones are Shannon's. So yeah, let's delve into Shannon's many different posts where she exposes herself as a relatively terrible person. Reading through Shannon's whole post history, I discovered a few posts in particular that highlight Shannon's terrible backstabby behavior. These few highlight Shannon mocking and berating D'Angelo Wallace, Ready to Glare, and Edwin, using demeaning words and insults to berate them, which is quite ironic for a body positivity YouTuber, considering she uses words like fat, etc, etc. Furthermore, there's also tons of posts about Hopeless Peaches and Toby Majestic, with Peaches being the main focus of most of the posts on this account. One of these posts mentions that Peaches sucks Creepshow's dick, and every video she makes, Creepshow will post the same video, but with more swearing the day earlier. Now, this is incredibly backstabby behavior, and given the fact that this is stated in present tense when Shannon would make a same video with more swearing the day before Peaches would make the same video, it implies that this was before Peaches and Shannon had their falling out, and it gives me the kind of feeling that they're just backstabbing, that Shannon was talking shit about Peaches behind her back way before they fell out. Now, maybe my timing's a bit off, I'm not 100% sure, as all I can see is 1 year ago, but this does seem quite questionable. You'll also notice in the post about Toby Majestic that Shannon described her as Shannon 2.0, which highlights how egotistical Shannon may be. You'll also notice in these posts that Shannon uses transphobic slurs like the T slur and a slur used to demean trans men. Obviously, this demeans me in particular, if you know anything about me, and also berates the person she's discussing. It also highlights how liberal her usage of slurs is, but that's also relatively obvious given this post where Shannon uses the R slur 3 times in about 1 sentence. You'll also notice Shannon insulting Sykkuno at points for his skin, which is quite funny again because she's a body positivity YouTuber. I genuinely swear, is anything about Shannon real at this point? I'm gonna go more in depth on her story times later, but from everything I've seen, she seems like a completely fake persona online. Like, there seems like no authenticity to the poster she is on her channel. And then it seems to be swings and roundabouts with Shannon. Again, another body positivity post where she calls someone with a corpse husband tattoo unfuckable while simultaneously lurking under a post trying to dox corpse husband. Shannon's also seen in these posts gloating about how others are scared of her and rambling about how she must make 20 grand a month, which is just her boosting her ego and flexing how much money she makes to see people's wow shocked reactions. And there's also just a bunch of posts about Shannon insulting herself, which seems like she's trying to start an argument about herself and spread false truths about herself. It seems really demeaning, but I think the way she's doing it is so that it doesn't look like she's the one making these posts, because she thought that her identity would never actually be exposed from this anonymous posting account. But I'm not really going to focus on any of that because it's just petty and pointless, and I'm pretty sure every other video on this platform has gone through it, so yeah. More concerning though, there's posts from Shannon guiding people to stalk the new accounts of someone known to be schizophrenic that Shannon made a video on in the past. Furthermore, considering that Amy is used as a vehicle in most of Shannon's story times, to me, she seems like a manufactured character, and that's what I mean when I say, is anything about Shannon real? At this point, I'm not even sure if her story times are real, and that's quite concerning. I'm not here to at all invalidate any of Shannon's experiences. I believe that would be completely scummy of me and wrong, but I do genuinely have to put skepticism on the authenticity of this character she's created when this same character is apparently the character responsible for the hacking for 3 years of her account. It simply doesn't add up with any of the chronological timeline, and if this isn't true, it's hard to tell what else is true about this whole Amy character. What's also weird is that after Shannon received criticism from a YouTuber, her channel apparently got hacked, and these hackers just changed her icon and banner to be glitched, while also removing her community posts. Which is like, what? Why would any hacker just not touch any of the videos and instead just fuck around with the community post icon and banner to do this cryptic shit? It makes no sense. And Shannon apparently lost access to make community posts conveniently until today, when her channel profile picture came back like nothing, and immediately she was just able to make a post responding to everything that happened. Like, what? And as far as I can tell, this isn't even the first time Shannon's apparently been hacked. It simply doesn't add up. If you can't tell, all of this behaviour in itself is incredibly concerning, confusing and troubling, with Shannon's excuses being incredibly baseless and lacking any evidence. Again, 12-year-old cousin vibes. But in conclusion, don't go out to harass Shannon. These are all allegations, and until Shannon gets to either admit or she's proven guilty without a doubt, this situation is left at the accusation phase. I don't want to see any comments saying, wow, I'm so shocked that Shannon would do this, because it's not proven that it's Shannon. I'm bringing you the information to keep you up to date on a situation, not to make conclusions based on this situation. But from what we can gather, if everything shared thus far is true, Shannon has been lying this whole time about a lot of her story times. Shannon has made up a false story to defend herself. Shannon has hacked her YouTube channel to get away from responding to criticism. Shannon has made posts disrespecting her friends for the past few years in private without them knowing, and Shannon's been using very disgusting and disgraceful and colourful language to demean a lot of people based on their status as a minority. Firstly, I'd like to cover an inconsistency in this account that I've had a few people point out to me. That being that in one of these screenshots, this account claims that they just discovered who Creepshow Art is. Though, this is a complete lie, as if you go back through the post history, they post about Creepshow way before they apparently discovered her, which means that they're either covering their bases, believing that they're anonymous, or just using it as a way to make her videos seem better and act like more people are interested in them. I don't really know. I had a few people mention this as some sort of definitive proof, and as such I just wanted to highlight how this doesn't actually make any sense with the timeline, and seems to be something they just said to get people in the conversation to listen to them. And now I'd like to go in depth on some of the responses Creepshow Art has made since being called out on all of this. So, the first one is Creepshow Art made an Instagram post. In the Instagram post, she details how she's going to be solving this legally, and she blames a bunch of her friends for cutting ties with her, or stepping a bit far away, as they can't trust her at this point, or not believing her on all of her apparent innocence to this whole situation. Now, to me, this seems very victim-blamey and almost manipulative. people aren't gonna trust you when all of this evidence comes out and your only excuse is I was hacked, considering you've claimed that you've been hacked over 3 times now, and one time they just changed your profile picture to be glitched and banner to be glitched, and then changed it back whenever you needed to write your response to this situation, and now someone's just apparently grabbed your IP for 3 years across multiple different devices, which doesn't add up to me at all. But Shannon also deleted every single video on her channel that relates to, in some way, the person she's accusing, Amy, being her stalker, and also doing this sort of behavior. Now, this is something that I wanted to note because I know a lot of people said this is an admission of guilt from Shannon. Now, while I do believe this is definitely suspicious that she would just delete all the story times, almost like she's trying to cover her bases, cover up the information that would make it seem like she was lying about this whole shit, and so that she can try paint a narrative about who this Amy person is, but at the same time, if Creepshow is planning some sort of legal action, you would probably have to take down these videos in hopes that you could actually press any legal charges, as if people don't know, when you speak about something like this publicly, it normally muddies the water for any legal investigation, which is why I'm thinking maybe Shannon took those videos down so that she could take legal action against this Amy. Now, while that's just a theory, and while it's probably implausible and probably wrong, I thought it would be good to give Shannon the benefit of the doubt there. But now let's get into one of the many reasons that I think that this account definitely is Shannon. I'm going to quickly go over everything that this account has said about Hopeless Peaches and Toby Majestic before, during, and after the whole drama, which led me to the conclusion that it was Shannon, as there's no way that anyone else would have known Shannon's kind of connection like this, had all this inside information, and had this kind of grudge against Peaches and Toby before the whole drama happened. So this post is a post of Shannon harassing Peaches, describing her as someone that befriends YouTubers, rips off their content, says what they say less interestingly, and then when that person puts them on the channel and asks their followers to follow this clone, they turn into a bitch about them. Which seems very manipulative. It's a way of Shannon painting herself as the victim against Peaches, when in reality a lot of what Shannon said against Peaches was completely untrue, and I'm pretty confident that my video, the Hopeless Peaches documentary, proved that quite well, that a lot of the points Shannon made against Peaches were misunderstood, misconstrued, or simply wrong. Also, that's such a shitty way to put yourself in a pedestal while simultaneously putting someone down about their content and making it seem like you're just so much better than them. But this is by far from the first or only post about Peaches. I'll show a bunch on screen right now. Shannon has said a lot about Peaches, and a lot of it is very inflammatory and just straight up disrespectful to someone that she apparently considered a friend, and on multiple times publicly spoke quite positively about. Seems very manipulative, and quite shocking. There's this one in particular where Shannon links one of Luke's videos, the one where he accuses Peaches of lying, and uses some of Shannon's screenshots, and she says that Luke shows a lot of damning screenshots. Now, considering I've looked at those screenshots, and when I pointed it out that none of them really added up, this seems to me at least like Shannon is directly endorsing and agreeing with a lot of what Luke said in his video, which is a massive yikes considering everyone and their mother knows how bad those videos were, considering they labeled Peaches a lot of wrong things, and when you look through those videos, none of the screenshots make any sense with the narrative he's trying to paint. It's just Shannon misunderstanding, and for some reason promoting a video that spreads a false narrative. There's also one comment in particular that genuinely rubbed me the wrong way. Now, I'm guessing this is in reference to Peaches, and a lot of the situations that Shannon's been involved with, but she mocks people that seem to become suicidal when they get involved in drama. She tries to make it seem like they're faking it, and spreads the narrative that she believes people like Peaches are betas. Now, this is massively disrespectful. Shannon obviously understands, unless she's completely ignorant or simply just dumb, that when you deal with a very high profile and stressful situation, it's going to cause you to struggle mentally. It's not something outlandish that a content creator would be depressed or suicidal after having to deal with one of these situations. And the fact that Shannon doesn't understand that for all of her body positivity, mental health awareness, and all of that shit that she preaches really upsets me. There's also posts with Shannon using autism as an insult, which is just disrespectful and ableist. There's one where she mocks pansexual people, which is weird, especially considering she is pansexual. There's also posts where she demeans a woman, calling them a pick-me woman, And this is the kicker, considering that Shannon completely ignored my emails when I brought to attention that my documentary came out. Shannon actually spoke about my documentary on this account, where she says that she, quote, paused on the part where I threw a screenshot on screen of an email between me and Creepshow, which I did have her consent to share, by the way, and I said that Creepshow did a bad job of researching because she didn't know that Peaches had apologized to Camilla. And then Shannon says that if you read the email, Shannon said that since Peaches continued to do what she apologized for, that didn't matter. And then Shannon calls me blatantly dishonest. Now, this is a massively dishonest and wow, what a way to twist the narrative in your favor. If you actually looked at that segment of the video, Shannon posted publicly saying that neither her or Camilla ever received an apology from Peaches, which was a downright lie, as I showed Shannon that Peaches had apologized to Camilla. Now, it doesn't matter whether Shannon personally disagrees with the apology or whatever else, as she still apologized, so it's completely a lie from Shannon to paint Peaches in a worse narrative, to say that Peaches never apologized, and then when called out for it, she just says no, because Peaches continued to do what she apologized for. It's bullshit. And it still just goes on. There's posts where she's mocking other people's sexuality, trying to insinuate that they're faking it, which highlights to me once again how completely fake Shannon's online persona is when you look at her doing this sort of shit behind the scenes. She constantly mocks a lot of people in these posts based on shit that they can't change, which is disgraceful considering her public presence is known for being the person that's always supporting people for their figure, for their personality, for their mental health, all of that shit. It also makes me laugh that Shannon, the content creator that parades around as proof that anyone can do YouTube, is also a content creator that acts so above everyone else on her content, when all her content is literally just grabbing a footage clip of her in Clip Studio Paint drawing, slapping it straight into Vegas, and then sticking her audio on it, which is not a lot of editing. She barely ever shows screenshots, and it doesn't seem like she puts much work in her videos, but it's crazy that she thinks it's her place to mock other people's content and tell them that they're only successful because they got in the YouTube algorithm. To me, Shannon comes across very egotistical and private, which is funny, once again, considering how innocent and wholesome she acts in public. She seems like a mirage, or for lack of better words, a mask, that's pretending to be a nice person to get the most viewers supporting her. But to be completely honest, I see a lot of comments from people being like, I'm so disappointed. Did you really expect any better from Shannon? Like, genuinely looking at Shannon, seeing a lot of her content, getting to see her personality, did you really expect any better from Shannon? Because for a long time now, I know me and a lot of other content creators have not been confident on how great of a person Shannon is, especially with how she handled the Peaches situation, how she handled everything in any of her videos, and how she always avoids criticism in one way or another, like for example when she claimed that her channel was hacked and all they did was glitch out the profile picture banner and disable her ability to make community posts. Shannon to me comes across like a manipulator that will lie to all of her audience, and that's simply my opinion, and I'm not accusing Shannon of anything, I'm literally just discussing the allegations presented against her, but in my eyes, that is how I view Shannon. I view Shannon as the type of person that will lie to her audience, will put on a mirage, and will act like a dick in private while shit-talking people. But what do I know? I'm so unfunny that I owe Omnia $5. I could really just go on and on and on about how Shannon verbally berates other people, gloats about how much better she is than other people, and how she becomes more popular than everyone and gains a better reputation after they call her out. But really, all you really need to see how the public is viewing Shannon right now is looking at her subscriber count. What do you see? Because to me, all I see is a bunch of people that are immediately losing all of the trust that they placed in Shannon and unsubscribing. If you haven't noticed, Shannon's lost like 10,000 subs already. She went from over 504,000 subs to 496,000 as of recording this video, which is a huge decline in Shannon's support, and to me represents everything that needs to be said about Shannon and her trust with her audience. She's made up so many stories, she's told so many mistruths to her audience, and she's claimed to have been hacked so many times now that every time she says it, less and less people believe her. And it's genuinely devastating to see a content creator that seems to be standing for all this good, and acts like one of the kindest people, and seems to be genuine, seems to be raw, seems to be themselves truly, wholly, and completely, turn out to be someone that apparently is nothing more than a doxer who will hide behind a mirage of lies and will continue to make up a bunch of shit excuses to try and avoid any backlash for her behavior. So to catch you up to speed, Emily Artful is a YouTuber with 457,000 subscribers. And they recently released a Twitter thread going through everything they believe Creepshow did to them over the past few years, accusing them of actually being the Amy that Creepshow describes, and all of Creepshow's stories where she's being harassed by this person is actually Emily Artful's stories of Creepshow art that Creepshow has made into her own stories. So apparently, by Emily Artful's claim, all of these videos that Creepshow deleted the 2 million views worth were all Emily Artful's stories, and Creepshow was passing off her own disgraceful behaviour as someone else's and taking Emily Artful's story about Creepshow and turning it into her own for more money. Emily Artful starts this Twitter thread by saying, "This just needs to be said. This woman has tormented me for years and years. I know her because my ex-boyfriend dated her after me. I moved on, but she/they continued to harass and stalk me." And Emily Artful then attaches an image which reads the following: "I am currently shaking and crying because Creepshow art is finally being exposed for the absolute terrible person she is. I have known Shannon for many years, even years before she started her YouTube channel. She has copied, stalked, harassed, and threatened me and my children's lives. She's used revenge porn against me, tried to use my drug addiction against me. She has literally got me fired from multiple jobs, causing me to be homeless. This person has pushed me to the brink of multiple times and then tried to blame it on a mutual friend when I finally caught her red-handed by tracing her IP. Shannon, you are Amy. All the things you claimed Amy did to you are the things you did to me. Receipts to come, I have years of them." Now, if this is true, my assumption from the previous video that nothing about Shannon is actually real would come to be completely true. Given this situation and this allegation being made, if this were to come true, Shannon had been lying about being homeless, being stalked, being pushed to the brink of suicide, having revenge against you, all of this shit. This would be the end of Creepshow Art's career, lying about all of this shit that she was doing to someone else and passing it off as her own story to act like the victim of all of these terrible behaviors. And while I'm not going to question Shannon's trauma at this point, if this allegation is to be true, which, to be completely honest, I don't see any reason for Emily to lie about this, I am utterly disgusted. And given Emily claims that she has proof, which I will be looking into in the next video, this situation could be an open and closed case where Creepshow is a completely guilty liar, and I believe that Shannon will never be able to make it out of this rut if this is actually true. I know a lot of YouTubers personally that are looking into this situation and trying to get verification that this was actually Shannon, and I'm waiting for them to come back to me with any evidence they can bring back, but at this point, if this situation is true, I'm utterly fucking disgusted, and knowing I've known Shannon in the past and had conversations with her, I genuinely wish I've never given her the benefit of the doubt, ever, if this was true. But given she never even gives the benefit of the doubt to many other people she covers on her channel, maybe I'm giving her more due diligence than she deserves. Emily Artful then follows up saying, "The fact she is saying her stalker did all this to frame her is fucking hilarious, because she has been making fake Emily Artful accounts all over the internet for years to try and cancel me over the most random shit." Now, this, if true again, would suggest that Creepshow holds a grudge against Emily Artful and has been trying to ruin her career for the past few years. Now, I don't know if this is true, but if this is actually real, that once again shows how fake of a person Creepshow is and how disgusting her behavior is. Now, obviously, I've already questioned the validity of a lot of Creepshow stories, given I mentioned the fact that she was hacked, where the hacker just deleted all her community posts, made it so she couldn't make community posts, and changed her profile picture and banner to be glitched out, which made no sense and happened around the time Creepshow was being criticized. But this suggests once again that Shannon will do absolutely anything and lie in any way to try and avoid any kind of backlash, while being the exact same person that does this disgraceful behavior that she's using as an excuse to defend herself in these situations. Once again though, that's an allegation. Emily then follows up once again, saying what's even more fucked up is she'd fabricate this drama and then make sock puppet accounts posing as a viewer concerned, and then she would send me the screenshots that she took when she first started out doing YouTube. She would deliberately copy my thumbnails or titles. This is probably one that people could tie back to Creepshow if they looked into the past of Creepshow's channel, and if true would once again highlight how Shannon has for the longest time held a grudge against Emily Artful and has been trying to ruin her life for the longest time, and would paint Shannon as the exact type of person that would try and ruin the lives of people like Hopeless Peaches over the most dumb shit simply because she holds a grudge like this, and once again would highlight how Shannon probably manipulated prison-mate Luke into making his video while feeding Luke lies in hopes that he would believe what Shannon was claiming. And I genuinely believe from the bottom of my heart that Shannon knowingly lied during the Hopeless Peaches drama. So given that, I genuinely would be more inclined to believe that Shannon is lying here as well. Emily Artful then follows up another time saying, then message me under a sock puppet account saying, oh my god, Creepshow is copying you, egging me on to attack her. But guess what? I never did. I very politely asked her to maybe change her title, but also said it's her channel and she can do whatever she wants with it. Emily then says that Shannon was very nice in response and agreed to change it, and then Emily says that Creepshow went to lolcow to claim that Emily was bullying smaller creators with zero proof because Emily was very polite. Then she'd screenshot that to post. If true, this would once again imply that Shannon was using lolcow to spread these lies about many content creators, like Peaches, like D'Angelo Wallace, like Ready to Glare, like every other content creator I've discussed, that the anonymous lolcow account that people believe to be Creepshow Art is posted about. But sadly, this isn't the only content creator that Creepshow Art is posted poorly about on lolcow farms, as Fish Lizard, or Jesp, came out recently with a post detailing how Creepshow Art released some ableist posts about Jesp. These posts read the following. So it looks like Fish Lizard / Oni Jesp is finally getting her desserts. The original post is deleted, but from the replies, people like Junkie and Vibzukian, it looks like she tried to call out Junkie or something kek, and thus cannibalization continues. Here's people calling her out, and the Chimmy person is apparently an ex-friend of hers she wrote an entire Google Doc about. It's a big fucking mess as someone calling her out on the Maori video. And on these posts, Creepshow Art attaches links to posts by Junkie and other content creators that have at points lied about Jesp and made a lot of shit up about them. But what you can see here is Creepshow Art trying to devalue the opinion of one of her detractors by bringing up claims made against her detractor in an attempt to try and smear their reputation because they criticized her. But this also relates to the post that Creepshow Art made in replies to one of Jess's posts before, where she said, anyone else find it weird that whenever these people are called out, they say they're gonna kill themselves? Now, if you ask me, this is incredibly ableist and a terrible stance to hold on mental health in particular, as anybody with half a brain cell knows that this simply isn't how the internet works, and when a lot of people bash down on you and you're already struggling with mental illnesses, you're very likely to easily cave in under this pressure and come towards hurting yourself in many different ways. And this is also in itself an inherent dig at people like Hopeless Peaches at the exact same time, and shows Creepshow Art clearly doesn't understand mental health in the slightest and is misrepresenting it in multiple different ways in a way to make people like Peaches and Jesp look worse by default. It's never okay in any way to question people's mental health. I thought we made this very clear when Luke made his video calling Peaches a beta, and people like me called it out and highlighted how Luke clearly doesn't have any understanding of mental health. But given Creepshow Art endorsed that video, as we can tell where she promoted it on one of her other lolcow posts, it should really highlight to you and everyone else watching this video that Creepshow Art severely misunderstands mental health. And just like when she knew that Peaches was struggling mentally, it seems here that despite knowing that Jesp is struggling mentally, she tries to make it seem like Jesp is making it up as a way to smear her further. And I'm just utterly shocked that Creepshow Art has made no effort to this point to in any way address any of these allegations or provide any evidence to prove her case or innocence in any way, while simultaneously making up a multitude of what can be considered excuses to try and avoid any backlash she could possibly receive from anyone that believes her actions in this situation have been reprehensible, disgraceful, or just simply ableist and just pretty fucked up in general. And it seems that Creepshow Art is just gonna see if this situation can die down, just like she said she was gonna do with the Hopeless Peaches drama, according to content creators I know who spoke to Creepshow Art about that whole situation. From what I can tell, Creepshow Art is gonna attempt to do the same thing here. She says she'll take it legal, she says she'll handle it privately, and then she's never gonna say anything about it again and hope that the hate dies down, which is not something I'm gonna let her do. This situation and everything she's done involving it has been absolutely and utterly disgraceful, and there is no excuse for everything she has done in the event that this is true, and the fact that she is refusing to admit to anything or prove her innocence in any way suggests to me that she is guilty and is trying to hide it up. Or at least that's my opinion, and it really upsets me that she's just ignoring all of this. The fact that Emily Artful has come out with a post like this, to me, details that Creepshow Art is a content creator that should never be trusted on any of her videos from now to the end of time. This sort of thing isn't something you can come back from or be forgiven for with a simple apology. Creepshowa, if she has done all the things she's been alleged of, is a content creator undeserving of any forgiveness or sympathy, as she's someone that hasn't cared about the sympathy of others and has at times apparently mocked mental health, mocked people for their identity, mocked people for their sexuality, mocked people for a multitude of different things, and has used her stories of harassing someone else and twisted them in a way to make it seem like she was the one being harassed. Creepshowa, in my opinion, if this is all true, is someone that shouldn't be allowed to make content the way she does, and has no simple excuse for any of this behavior. If she can't come back providing any evidence to show her innocence, she is someone undeserving of forgiveness. Creepshowa taking this legally, to me, means that she has no evidence to rebut anything that's been claimed against her, as if you don't know, taking something legally means in no way that you're innocent, as whoever has the most money in a legal case is normally the one that wins, and given Creepshowa is going to be suing someone for probably a lot of money, given the way she words it, she'll probably win that case, as they'll probably go for settling, which is disgusting and won't prove her innocent. I've seen people accused of several different crimes that haven't taken this legally. For example, with Slazo, where instead of Slazo taking this to a legal debate, which is the petty and pussy way to handle this situation, while not taking any backlash from anything that's claimed against you, people like Slazo have actually made the effort to make whole threads and videos going through everything that's claimed against them and providing proof to oppose the allegations made against them in a way that genuinely shows their innocence. Shannon could do that, but instead she takes the approach of just going to take legal action against the person, which I doubt she could even do. Let's rewind the clock back to when I made my Hopeless Peaches documentary, and when I ended up in contact with a lot of content creators involved in the Hopeless Peaches drama. Now, if you don't know, when I made that video I reached out to Shannon in private to address some of my concerns with how she handled the situation, namely how she lied, bold-faced lied, about how her and Camilla never received an apology, which at the time I thought was a mistake where Camilla hadn't told her, but given she also got an apology and continued to lie about it way after, and then made excuses for it when I called her out for it, saying that because Peaches went back on the things she apologized for, the apology basically never happened. This kind of highlights a more malicious undertone, now seeing the shit that Peaches has come out with, that Shannon was basically threatening her into silence, and so I'd like to touch on that a little bit. Back when I was working on my documentary, I messaged Shannon quite a few times, and I brought up many of my issues, and she was really nice to me, to be completely honest. She gave me a lot of respect, and she came across like a genuine person that was nice to me, and I know 99% of other content creators who spoke to Creepshowa have said the exact same thing, basically. Oh, she was so nice to me in private, and that's why I didn't want to call her out. And I get that mindset, but I'm simply not that type of person. Speaking to Shannon did not water down my criticism in any way, and I called her out for everything I believe she'd done wrong with, and I highlighted within my video that Creepshowa had lied about a bundle of things to try and frame Hopeless Peaches as way worse than she was, with barely any evidence, or evidence that could be contradicted so easily that I did it in only 20 minutes, and highlighted how all of Shannon's videos basically were baseless at best, slanderous at worst. Which led to Shannon never responding to any of my emails again until one situation in particular, which is where this video takes a much darker, more visceral twist and into something that I didn't script. I didn't script this whole point in the video like I do with the rest of my points, as this is something that I want to talk about genuinely from the heart, as it's a serious situation involving someone else's mental health. Most people know that Hopeless Peaches had attempted to take her own life when this drama started spurring up, and had been talked out of taking her life by Manga Carmen, who showed her a lot of support and helped her in that time. Now, there's one situation in particular that not a lot of people actually know about, as I deleted any tweets mentioning it, Peaches deleted any tweets mentioning it, and no one else actually touched upon it in any way. Hopeless Peaches attempted to take her life a second time, where she released a tweet discussing how she intended to remove herself from this world because she couldn't take the drama anymore and people hating on her. And when I saw this tweet, I called Peaches' number around 30 times with no response while I sat in VC with some of the people of my server while I was panicking and stressing a bunch because I've had a traumatic past with some of these situations before. So I was sat there panicking, and in that panic I DM'd Creepshowa and I told her that this was happening, and I asked her what I should do, and she seemed like she genuinely cared. She was guiding me on what to do, telling me how to handle this situation, and She was telling me how she didn't want anything bad for Peaches at all, and how she thought Peaches could get past this, and she was telling me how amazing of a person Peaches actually was, and telling me to tell Peaches that when I got in the call with them. And luckily enough, Peaches is okay, which is great. It's great that Peaches is safe and well, because that situation did weigh heavily on me, and it caused a lot of stress. That situation is one of the hardest things I've had to deal with in my life, and Shannon did help in that situation, to be completely honest, because I had no idea how to handle it at all. And I appreciate people that reached out to me like Tipster and expressed this support that they had for me doing that, and told me that I made the right decision and all of that. I appreciate the people like Tipster that did that, because that situation weighed heavily on me, and I guess I was kind of easily taken advantage of there, because under my stress, I didn't think about how manipulative what Shannon was saying actually was, because how Shannon framed herself in this situation made it seem like she actually cared about Peaches in any way, or that she thought Peaches was a good person. But then you also look at everything Shannon has said, how she so clearly and intentionally lied about Peaches at points, how she was apparently shit-talking her on Lolcow, how she manipulated so many people into hating Peaches, and used Luke to spread a lot of information against Peaches, and never once denounced his claims of suicide baiting while apparently promoting this video on Lolcow. And you've got to consider how fucked up it is. How fucked up it is to act like, on one hand, you care so much about this person being safe and okay, as you simultaneously advocate for and promote a video that actively suggests and implies that Peaches is a suicide baiter who was faking tendencies for sympathy. I, as someone who was on that call with Peaches, know for certain that Peaches was not faking that. You cannot fake the raw emotion that I saw in that call. That experience was so fucking serious, and Shannon knowing that happened and making videos on Peaches and doing all of this shit, and not once ever fucking suggesting in any way that Peaches was innocent of any of the false claims she made, of all of this shit, like when she accused Peaches of doxing, when she fucking did all of this shit. And then it gets even worse when you consider the emails that Shannon sent to Peaches that Peaches highlighted in her video. Now, I'm going to touch on these briefly, because obviously I don't know the full context of these emails. I have been privy to the information in these emails for quite a bit now. Within these emails, Shannon relentlessly bashes Peaches, claiming that Peaches is lying about everything, claiming that Peaches did dox her, but Shannon didn't claim she doxed her, which Shannon did claim because she implied that Peaches leaked her number, which Peaches didn't do in any way. It was a false claim made to slander Peaches, just like when Shannon claimed that Peaches never apologized, despite her actually apologizing, and despite when Shannon lied about all of this shit against Peaches. Shannon made Peaches seem like a terrible person, knowing Peaches was in a bad place, knowing Peaches was being destroyed publicly, and knowing that Peaches had no way to defend herself against Shannon's huge platform, and all these claims that Shannon made against her. But that's not the huge issue with this chat. Obviously that's a problem, but the biggest issue is these final messages that Shannon sent to Peaches. One in particular where Shannon threatens Peaches, saying that if Peaches or anyone else that Peaches is close to speaks out further with more information, Shannon may have to speak again about Peaches and blast her again. And then Shannon regurgitates that in her final response in a kind of friendly, passing tone to make it seem like she's just looking after Peaches. And may I just say how fucked up it is that you would say that she's not allowed to defend herself against the claims you've made against her. She's not allowed to give her side, otherwise she could risk being blasted by you again. That is a fucking upsetting viewpoint to have. It's actually upsetting to see a content creator like Shannon, someone that has their platform, someone that advocates for mental health awareness, for body positivity, for all of this shit, for someone that acts so inclusive to people in the LGBTQ community, to someone that acts like their understanding of mental health, for that same person to act in this way, this manipulative way, and use Peaches' tweets that she made while she was mentally unwell, where she didn't even mention Shannon by name, and according to Peaches weren't even referencing Shannon, to use those in a video to try and blast Peaches and try and ruin Peaches' career, Similar to how Prismate Luke tried to absolutely destroy my career, that behavior distresses me. Putting that on top of all the other times she's gone back on mental health awareness, like her one post on Lolcow where she says, "Isn't it weird that all these YouTubers start becoming suicidal after they get in drama?" And all of her posts where she's mocking Peaches. And then you see her posts where she's mocking the LGBTQ, and then you see her posts about all this other shit if this is actually Shannon's account, which, again, it's allegations at this point. And then you couple that on top with the allegations that are coming out, apparently, from Emily Artful, that should come out today or tomorrow, where Emily Artful apparently has proof, years of proof, that Shannon was harassing her, stalking her, doing all of this fucked up shit about her. When you see all of that coupled together, you have to wonder how fucking fake of a person Shannon is and how much she's twisted this. And I didn't really think about this whole side with my engagement with Shannon and Peach's private emails with Shannon. I kind of forgot about that because I wanted to believe that Shannon was a good person, and everyone that knew Shannon told me Shannon was a good person. So when I realized that Shannon was lying after I saw Peach's video yesterday, I knew I had to speak about this. I knew I had to speak about how fucked up Shannon's been acting towards Peaches, and how she's basically to this point ruined Peach's whole channel, her whole chance at ever being a content creator, Peach's whole chance at ever just doing something she enjoys instead of having to work a job. Shannon took that opportunity from Peaches and shredded it to pieces because she decided that she had the right to ruin Peach's whole fucking life because, oh, Peaches was a bad friend to me. It's so fucking pessy and disgusting, and it upsets me. It actually upsets me, and it pisses me off. If you haven't seen Peach's video, go watch it. And if you unsubscribe from Peaches or weren't subscribed to Peaches, please do resubscribe to Peaches. Peaches makes great content. They're a great person. I've been friends with Peaches for a good few months now, and unlike Shannon, who apparently had all these bad experiences, I have never had a bad experience with Peaches. Peaches has been a great person to me. Peaches has been a great person to everyone she's friends with. Peaches is a good person who had some bad friendships with certain people. That doesn't mean that Peaches is someone that deserves to be cancelled or someone unforgivable or anything like that. So if you could just go support Peaches, that would be highly appreciated, and help them get back to 100,000 subscribers, which was what they were almost about to hit. Because I know Peaches intends to quit because they believe their channel is gone. They believe they don't have a chance with their channel anymore, and that's upsetting that Peaches lost, in their eyes, everything because of shit that wasn't even fucking true about them. Emily Artful's video first details her relationship with her ex, where she goes in depth on how this ex took advantage of her in multiple different ways, just like one of her other abusive relationships, where she was manipulated to the extent where she couldn't feel free in her own body, and was at one point, while drunk, taken advantage of by her ex, according to Emily Artful. Then, as we continue through this video, we delve into what Creepshow Art has apparently done. Now, Emily can't prove for 100% that Creepshow was involved in these actions for sure. However, given she showed a lot of DMs between her and Creepshow, which kind of insinuate that sort of thing, and given that Creepshow is apparently dating Emily Artful's ex, and also given the fact that apparently Emily, according to herself, has traced these IPs back to their address, and given that Emily has shown that she sent emails to Facebook showing this information, given that Emily has apparently submitted police reports about it, and furthermore, because Emily wouldn't really gain anything from coming out with these allegations, as Creepshow Art could rebut them very easily if they weren't true, I am very inclined to believe what Emily has said in this video, and as such, I'm going to go through this video basically saying as much. The first point I'd like to detail is how Creepshow Art may have been involved in a lot of the sock puppet accounts that harassed Emily Artful over the past few years. This can be proved by the fact that Creepshow Art has a TikTok post up where you can spot within the post that Creepshow Art has sock puppet accounts logged in on Twitter, as she showed in this TikTok video that was highlighted by Emily on one of her Twitter posts. This would link Creepshow Art to a lot of the comments that were made threatening Emily Artful, saying that they had personal information about Emily, and that they were constantly harassing Emily with all of this information, that they apparently had sexually explicit images or videos of Emily when she was a minor, etc, 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 and also a lot of these comments that were constantly berating Emily for a multitude of different things. Given Shannon was also in a relationship with Emily's ex, I think it wouldn't be too far-fetched to presume that if the ex was harassing Emily, and as Emily claims she notices a difference in how these messages are worded as over time Shannon may have got further involved, and given Emily cites multiple examples within Shannon's DMs where Shannon makes stories up that seemingly have no basis to be factual on, like when Emily highlights the fact that Shannon claims that she just came up with the series name and didn't realize that it was Emily's, but also apparently Shannon, according to Emily, followed some of her tutorials to a T, suggesting that Shannon had seen Emily's content before that. It would be very hard for Shannon to argue that she didn't know Emily, and that wouldn't add up with the timeline. Furthermore, given Emily claims that right after she brought to Shannon's awareness that Emily intended to bring a restraining order to Shannon and Anthony, the fact that immediately after that all of the harassment ceased for the rest of time, I think it would also add on to the point that it would be incredibly hard for people to say that there was no correlation between Shannon finding out this information and the harassment just disappearing immediately. It's also to be noted that given that Emily's ex was apparently abusive in multiple different ways, and given Emily got DMs from this ex where they highlighted that apparently Emily had botted views, and then a few seconds after, Emily got a DM from a completely different account showing all this proof that apparently Emily bought views, and then also given the fact that Emily's ex knew where Emily was, they lived in a similar location, and then Emily one day randomly got messaged by an account that had screenshots that were apparently near Emily's location, very near, according to her town square, I think it would be not too far-fetched to claim that Emily's ex was involved, and it would be incredibly hard for Shannon to not realize this. Emily also highlights that in that stalker account that apparently came to her location, they also used a similar sense of comedy and tone as Emily's ex also did, which could further correlate them and relate their behavior together. Also, given Shannon claims that somehow some random account just DM'd her explicit images of Emily, which apparently according to Emily were of Emily when she was a minor, it seems very unlikely. Who randomly DMs a content creator like Creepshow Art and just sends them this type of explicit content, and not any other content creator, not knowing that Shannon and Emily had any kind of relationship as it was never public, that they'd ever even involved each other in any way. That simply doesn't add up to me in the fact that that came out of Shannon's mouth in DMs to Emily. If these screenshots are real, that seems very suspicious to me in itself. Emily also claims that around this time she got a DM from a completely anonymous account that claimed that it was their brother that was stalking Emily, and that it had all this information about Emily, including explicit images of Emily, all of this shit, which simply would make no sense given the person behind this account claims that the brother that was apparently stalking Emily was 15 as of this moment, which would have made them 10 when apparently a lot of this shit happened, which simply, to me at minimum, makes no sense from my viewpoint. It simply doesn't add up to me that a 10-year-old would be stalking someone, would have all of this private information, and would have been sending these comments for years, berating Emily in so many different ways. A 10-year-old simply wouldn't do that. They wouldn't have that kind of comprehension, that kind of grammatical finesse, none of that. It simply wouldn't have happened. Also, given the account owner couldn't provide any proof at all, and also given the fact that the 15-year-old was just checked into a mental health hospital without anything else ever brought attention to about it, simply doesn't add up to me. Do you want to know something else incredibly suspicious that I noted? Shannon deleted her Instagram account when Emily went public about the fact that she was going to make a video discussing all of this. I'll give you a few seconds to guess where most of Emily Artful and Shannon's conversations took place. Instagram! Very obviously. It seems very suspicious that Shannon would delete a social media account like Instagram instead of just closing her DMs or not reading message requests, when, conveniently enough, that was the place that she had all these conversations with Emily, and she only deleted this on the wake of Emily making a video about this situation. Back into Emily's video though, another bit of proof that Emily provides to show that apparently it's Creepshow Art and her partner that has been stalking Emily is the fact that Emily traced back these accounts to find their location, and they linked back to a library location in San Jose, which is where Creepshow Art and her partner apparently lives. Now, given that information, you may go, well, how does that in any way relate to Creepshow Art and her partner? Well, you see, there are multiple story times on Creepshow Art's channel, and also on her partner's channel, where they detail how, for a time, because they were homeless, out of their own choice and not because they were forced to be, how, in that time, the only place they could really get internet or work would be in a library. Now, that seems incredibly suspicious, and given Emily to this point has showed a lot of receipts to back up most of her points, though she obviously can't show IPs for legal reasons, and for the fact that you wouldn't want to dox someone and get people to turn against you, I think this is a credible claim, and by itself seems to stand to reason that it would be Creepshow or her partner that was doing this. And while you can't tie Creepshow directly to this, as there's no 100% proof that it was Creepshow doing this, other than fact she went sock puppet accounts, other than she was partners with the person, other than she conveniently was also in the same places, other than Creepshow claims that her IP was hacked for the lolcow situation, which is a similar excuse and also wouldn't make any sense. It furthermore develops my opinion that it likely was Shannon that was also involved in this whole situation, and when you look over Shannon's DMs that she sent to Emily when Emily told her about getting a restraining order, you'll notice a lot of what Shannon does comes across incredibly manipulatory, and Emily highlights that Shannon tried to jump upon Emily mentioning that Brandon may have been involved, and says, oh yes, Brandon was also linked to the PO box, which is an incredibly convincing way to try and pass any blame off in the event that any screenshots or proof that Emily had would link back to that PO box, as Shannon could be like, no, it was probably Brandon that also had access to the PO box, or Brandon that also had apparently been stalking Emily according to Creepshow. Furthermore, it's also incredibly suspicious from my viewpoint that Emily details the fact that Creepshow's stories on her channel coincidentally link very closely to many of Emily's stories that she has from her personal life, and also that Shannon conveniently chose a name like Amy to represent her stalker, which is very close to Emily, so that Shannon could possibly try and blame anything on Emily in the event that Emily was to come out about her experiences with Shannon and what happened. I personally believe that there is a lot of merit to the fact that Emily sees a lot of this proof and ties it back to Shannon, and Shannon just coincidentally has a stalker with a similar name, has similar experiences, and whenever she's called out on similar things, like the lolcow account, she just claims that she was hacked or makes similar excuses. I feel like it's incredibly questionable that Shannon wouldn't know anything about this situation or wouldn't have been involved as a stalker in the event that all of this other separate shit seems to very similarly link Shannon in a very similar way and paint her to have a very similar persona to what Emily portrays, and also given Emily's personal testimony of what she saw with the account's grammar changing, all of that shit, I think that there is merit to what Emily is claiming. Emily also provides proof that the IP that she shows within her video that she claims is apparently Creepshow Arts and her ex's, which she obviously censors for legal reasons. She highlights that when she checks the file information for that image, it comes from the exact same time that she took other screenshots about this whole situation. To me, that gives it a lot more merit, as no one would randomly screenshot an IP years ago planning for this situation, more than like 5 years ago, before any of this happened. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's also incredibly suspicious that after Emily's account apparently gets hacked, and Emily shows herself sending an email to Facebook back then that mentions this whole situation with the stalking and also highlights the IP how her email or account has been hacked, Emily's email somehow, a few days later, sends an email out about the project that her ex was working on that she no longer works on. It seems incredibly weird that that would be sent right after she's talking about being stalked by this person and had already cut ties with them. It seems in a way that they gained access to Emily's email, and from that, they sent this to make it seem like Emily would be making it up in the event that Emily tried to show anything against them in any kind of way. It simply wouldn't make sense for Emily to ever send this email. And also, that obviously very clearly links it back to the ex, as only the ex would ever do something like that. So, again, it puts more pressure on the fact that it may be Shannon, maybe the ex, that whole thing. And Emily's video continues from there, expanding on every single point I've mentioned in this video, highlighting more in depth on every single thing in relation to it, and showing more and more screenshots than I could possibly fit into this video, and keep it as condensed as it currently is. Emily's video goes in depth on everything, highlighting everything she believes, and I noticed a lot of people have mentioned, well, how does this prove it's Shannon? But I'd consider the DMs that Shannon sent to be a very clear indicator that she may have had some sort of involvement, and that's why I made this video, as I personally don't trust a single word Shannon said, given the information about the lolcow account has come out, and are ready to glare intends to come out with a video discussing everything she's experienced with Shannon. And I've noticed more recently that Emily has posted more and more tweets showing anonymous sources which seem, in my opinion, to be ready to glare, given how the name is censored. This is just a guess though, I may be wrong, but that account is remaining anonymous, claiming that Shannon had been shit-talking Emily for a long time. A lot of this seems to link very clearly back to Shannon, and it's incredibly hard to continue to make excuses for Shannon in the event that this may be true, and At this point, with this much evidence, it's upon Shannon to prove herself innocent. It's not upon us to prove Shannon innocent. It should be Shannon's responsibility, but I highly doubt she will, given she's just deleting social media accounts and not even posting videos anymore. She's completely disappeared, and I believe that that's because she realizes that she's guilty. So, as a little catch-up, for those of you that have only been following my videos and no one else's, Spokta recently mentioned in their video that IP spoofing's only real purpose is for DDoSing, and it seems highly suspicious that Shannon would claim that all of these 300 posts across multiple years from different devices were somehow all being sent under her different IPs that were being spoofed, when IP spoofing can't, as far as I know, send posts like this. It would simply be implausible, and maybe Shannon used the wrong term. I'd like to give her the benefit of the doubt. She wouldn't give me the benefit of the doubt, but I'd like to give Shannon the benefit of the doubt nonetheless, that maybe she just used the wrong term. However, that does in itself bring up a lot of questions, as it seems odd that she would just claim that out of the blue with no evidence to support it. Spokta also mentions how there's a technique used by a lot of legal agencies like the police to bring up a liar and catch them on their lie while simultaneously milking them for more information and catching them out very, very quickly. That technique is called the alternate question, which is where you ask a question or you subtly hint in a way something that you know to be less likely, or something that would allow the other person to latch onto it to escape from any backlash, to somehow evade your criticism because they believe, because they're lying, that they can get away with it if they take your little moment of doubt and try and capitalize on it. Spokta mentions that Shannon latches on to Emily mentioning that Brandon may be involved by saying, oh yeah, Brandon, you know, he's been discussing it as well, Brandon may have been involved. I kind of feel like Brandon's been doing that same thing to me. You gotta understand, Brandon was kind of like that as well. And also, by the way, I know that you're threatening to make it so that we can't come in contact with you by filing a restraining order. You may notice that the PO box we've given you also may link back to Brandon. So in the event that any evidence was to come from that, it was probably Brandon, you know, that was just linked to us. I promise, I'm innocent. Again, that highlight has been taken advantage of here, unintentionally by Emily, and has somehow linked Shannon into what can be seen as a less likely, less believable truth, while also rambling on for way more than she needed to, which is also a thing seen by a lot of liars, where they constantly extend their story and add more information than they need to, because they want the other party to believe them so desperately, and they believe the other party will only believe them if they continue to give them more information. Spokta also highlights how an apparent little kid who was 10 at the start of Emily's stalking, who Shannon claims was apparently the kid that was stalking Emily, knew and planned so many of the problems happening to Emily, including the claims of viewbotting, which Anthony had claimed to Emily minutes before this new account that apparently this 10-year-old was running reached out, which simply seems very suspicious. It seems weird that this kid would somehow know all of this information, including this Twitter spat that wasn't mentioned publicly about the whole viewbotting allegation, which the only other person involved in that whole situation was Anthony, where Anthony had made that claim, and then a few seconds later to a few minutes later, an account had reached out, the anonymous account that this 10-year-old is running, that somehow had proof of all these allegations. It seems incredibly weird and doesn't really line up. Also, the fact that Shannon claims that she received nudes of Emily as Emily was a child from this account, which somehow possessed it, despite them being a kid, or this was some other account that just Shannon has just made up out of the blue to somehow have all of this information, which seems incredibly weird. Again, I'm stating matter of the fact that's still an allegation. And Shannon also started posting on Lolcow a few days after ceasing harassment towards Emily, after apparently this 15-year-old was put in a mental asylum. This simply doesn't add up. And it seems very likely that Shannon started her channel to harass Emily and to excuse her stalking, while also milking Emily's story times and just coming up with more ways to ruin Emily's life in so many different ways. And final note to take into consideration before I get into the new information. Shannon has lost over 100,000 subscribers because of this situation so far, as of recording this audio, which is insane. The only cancellation I've ever seen close to this size was with James Charles, which is nuts, considering that James Charles' situation was over predator allegations. So, I don't know how Shannon has somehow made a situation this bad, but she has, so that's great. And yeah, we're all caught up, so let's get into the new information. Recently, a Twitter user known by Cultergeist came out against Shannon with a whole thread making multiple different claims, claiming that they met Shannon in freshman year of college in 2011, sharing an English class, but not having too much contact with Shannon. However, after dealing with an abusive relationship, they reconnected with Shannon, which allowed them to somehow, after time, discover Shannon's concerning, as they say, behavior, which started with Shannon introducing Cultgeist to Anthony's music. Shannon claimed at this time that Anthony was her ex, however, they'd maintained a relationship in the bedroom. Shannon was apparently being treated poorly by Anthony, and that was called out by Cultgeist. However, Shannon said that she believed the relationship was okay. Shannon apparently heavily shit-talked Emily, blowing out the act in DMs with Emily that she really didn't know who she was, referring to her in the way that an acquaintance would. And according to Cultgeist, Shannon was apparently fixated to Emily, for lack of a better words, pointing out all of Emily's apparent flaws and mocking Emily. Cultgeist further states that they stayed talking to Shannon in spite of the red flags because they needed help with their abuser, and they then discovered Shannon was cyber-stalking Emily. Cultgeist states that Shannon shared plans to harass Emily, stalked her personal information, and more, corroborating the idea that Shannon was highly involved in Anthony's behavior and punching another hole in Shannon's pretty picture. They also share more information about how Shannon allegedly stalked their social media and sent them cryptic messages, with apparently a lot more too, which is outlandish in itself, and again brings back the question, how does Shannon believe that anyone trusts her word? Okay, I'm gonna bring up how Shannon's story is actually presented if it was worded in an honest way. Shannon expects you to believe that by coincidence, Shannon somehow had the same ex or same partner as Emily. Shannon somehow was also the same YouTuber that happened to have the same titles and thumbnails as Emily, and Shannon somehow was provided these nude images of Emily and all the secret imagery of Emily despite no other content creator being reached out, and Shannon was the same person that apparently, just by coincidence, was running this lolcow account, according to the allegations, that was spreading all of this stuff about Emily recently, right after she stopped talking about Emily, and also, Shannon was coincidentally the IP linked back to a bunch of this behavior, and Shannon's story times coincidentally linked up with the allegations, and Shannon's evidence coincidentally lines up with how Shannon's acted in multiple different situations, and every other thing Shannon's claimed is all just a big coincidence, guys. It's just a coincidence that Shannon may have showed all of these traits and just have been accused of being involved in all these situations. It's all just a coincidence, guys. That's how Shannon's story actually sounds to anyone with half a brain, and to me, I'd say that's case closed. However, there's more testimonies to go through, so let's go through them. Holly Brown recently came out with a video about Shannon stalking and harassing her, slandering her in multiple different ways across the past few years, even in spite of Holly losing her channel, and Shannon having no real reason to continue blasting her, which again corroborates the idea that Shannon has apparently been stalking a bunch of people on social media and harassing them in a way to either make herself feel better or because she's literally nuts. It seems really suspicious that coincidentally, so many people have had this similar experience with Shannon of being stalked and harassed online by people that are seemingly Shannon, but Shannon claims that it's just someone else, or in Holly's case, apparently just is Shannon across her actual platforms, and also Shannon has apparently been lying on the lolcow post, which, considering Shannon apparently made videos about this, and apparently Shannon was talking about the Hopeless Peaches stuff on the lolcow before it even became public drama, and all of this private information, like the fact that Spoctor and Shannon were doing a collab, like Spoctor states, before Spoctor ever shared that information publicly anywhere, which again only means that Shannon could have possibly shared that. It seems very suspicious that all of this behavior seems to line up in so many different ways with Shannon, and to me, it seems incredibly suspicious that Shannon just seems to go by the accusation that, oh no guys, listen, it was a 10-year-old at the time that was doing it, and it wasn't me, and it was other people, and my story times just happened to line up. It's so insane that Shannon believes that anyone would trust this at all. And it's even more likely that Shannon is lying, given the fact that every claim between people has lined up. And again, apparently people, like people that went to Shannon's old college, was also aware of Shannon's behavior and witnessed her doing this stuff to Emily. It seems so weird that people would have witnessed it in the event that Shannon claims that she never knew anything about it, and that she wasn't involved in all of this shit. It doesn't add up. Ready to Glare also came out with a video recently, discussing how she considers this situation to be case closed, and how the last time in her life lolcow made a claim like this, they were correct. Also, Glare discusses how Shannon still feigns ignorance, and how she's just disappointed in Shannon for this whole situation. Now, she didn't want to cover it, but she kinda has to, and all of this shit, and to be completely honest, I feel incredibly sorry for Glare, considering this brings up back old trauma that she's experienced and reopens resealed wounds, while simultaneously hurting Glare in many different ways. I don't know why I was going to use the full username there again, but hurting Glare in many different ways as she thought that her and Shannon were friends. Shannon sent her flowers and all of this different stuff. It's really sad to see so many people like Nany, Glare, and so many more being betrayed by Shannon in so many different ways. I genuinely feel bad. Speaking to Nany, it just made me feel incredibly pained to know that she'd bonded with Shannon over her personal experiences with being homeless, and to know that Shannon had fabricated a lot of that story or dramatized it despite it not being as severe as it was. The fact that Shannon was actively buying Nany's plushes, apparently, all of this stuff, it just hurts so much to see Shannon betraying so many people, and people I'm friends with as well. It's like, this situation would be so much different if I didn't know Shannon. I'd be covering this from like an outside perspective, but I know and have actively involved myself with a lot of people that know and have been slandered by Shannon. Heck, I was slandered by Shannon on her lolcow post. It's weird how close this is to people like me and other creators, and that's why it's so hard for us to discuss it. And it sucks that I'm seeing so many people leaving comments now that are shitting on YouTubers for not calling out Shannon and being like, you're friends with Shannon, so you're being silent. It's like, no, it's incredibly hard to come out about this stuff and talk about it, because Shannon is a big creator that could literally destroy us. They could neuter us in a second. It was seen with Peaches when they didn't like Peaches. They neutered Peaches in a second. They could neuter anybody they wanted, realistically. Maybe they can't anymore now. They've lost all trust at all. But the fear is still there, to be completely honest. And also, a lot of people have real connection with Shannon, and they want to believe that Shannon is a good person. They want to hear Shannon's side, and Shannon is refusing to give them it. Also, it's incredibly weird that so many people for some reason are claiming that every female creator out there is somehow Shannon. Like, recently, Omnia was accused of being Shannon because they have a similar voice, which is insane considering Omnia is literally a POC and Shannon is not. It's weird, and Shannon's artist, the artist behind her banner, is also apparently being harassed over this, or at least they state that they don't want to be harassed over this because they didn't know about any of this, and it just feels so bad to see this whole situation. I reached out to the artist in private, and I've told them I'm going to mention this because they don't deserve any harassment. To be completely fair, they aren't involved in anything Shannon's done. They were commissioned before Shannon was exposed, all of that shit, so I don't want to see anyone going after their artists. But also, I don't want to see anyone going after other content creators and claiming they are Shannon. It's just such a weird way to harass people for no reason. Yes, Shannon's run sock puppet accounts, but no, Shannon isn't Omnia, Nany, me, or any other content creator. It's nuts that people would somehow come to that assumption in any way without doing any research. All it takes is to click on Omnia's account to see Omnia is literally a person of color. How do you mess up that badly that you would falsely accuse someone this severely in such an obvious point-blank conclusion? It is not the same person. How do you come to this conclusion? However, in this whole situation, Shannon's only response so far, other than her community post, which was dreadful, is to just continue to delete videos, many videos discussing her stalking apparently situation, which is fucking nuts. The fact that she's just deleting her story times, the ones that have evidence that would go against her, it's nuts. It's nuts that she's not responded publicly to any of the furthering claims. She's not explaining anything to her friends in private, and instead she is just deleting videos to try and clear her ass. She must realize at this point that this situation is fucked, but at this point, I don't even know if Shannon is smart enough to comprehend that she can't just hide from this. No one is going to forget this. She's lost a fifth of her audience in a few weeks. This situation isn't going to disappear. It's either you respond or it's over. Okay, so getting on topic, there's a few things I'd like to preface this video with. Firstly, you can prove that the account that posted all these things is apparently Shannon's sibling, as you can see that this account has messaged Shannon, or Shannon's old account, which was a mix of Shannon's first and middle name together. You can see that this account was also messaging Shannon's apparent account at the same time years ago. You can also take the fact that Shannon's sibling's account apparently wished happy birthday to Shannon's actual birthday to this other account, which would make it coincide more, because I don't think anyone would be planning this many years ago to bring up this evidence and call Shannon out in this way. And also, it's the same account that was doxed on the Kiwi Farms, and has talked to creators that Shannon has talked to or was a fan of. It seems incredibly suspicious that anyone would believe that this wasn't Shannon's sibling, given the added context, and as such, I'm more inclined to trust their word by default. But before I get into the post that Shannon's sibling apparently shared about Shannon on this private account in the time that it wasn't private, which, again, all my screenshots are going to have to be from Truth Sleuth, because I couldn't get a copy before the account went private again, I'd like to go through Shannon's post now about their sister to highlight how it seems like Shannon is trashing their sister ahead of time and also slandering them. This post starts by saying, "My sister, without a doubt, she's incredibly selfish and entitled and doesn't like when there are consequences to her actions at all. When we were younger, she was the good kid because she was super smart and knew how to do well in school. She also ran track and cross country and was really successful in things that she would do. So our parents never really got mad at her, even when they probably should have, which is why I'm tough as nails, and she freaks out when there are consequences to her actions. She is lesbian and I am bi, and when I was growing up, told me I wasn't gay enough to be in the LGBT, and that I was hetero passing, so essentially I didn't have the right to complain about anything." Now, to be completely honest, if this was true, this would be quite disrespectful of Shannon's sibling to do. However, there are a few points that I'd like to take into account here as we continue reading through this post. Number 1. Shannon misgenders their sibling, calling them their sister, knowing that they're trans and that they don't identify by she/her pronouns. This in itself is very disrespectful, and you should never dead name or mispronounce someone intentionally, whether you don't like them or not. Shannon also is very untrustworthy on the LGBT front, because obviously we've discussed the fact that Shannon in the past has made some apparent comments on lolcow which were incredibly distasteful in themselves and shed a lot of transphobic, homophobic, etc. comments that seemed to come across in a way that was incredibly discriminatory and offensive to a lot of people, and as such I could see that Shannon may have made similar comments to their sibling, which may have led to this situation coming to occurrence. She would try to get me to date a platonic, straight friend to the point where it made them uncomfortable because she was literally forcing something on them they didn't want. She also messed with my body image, telling me I had no chest or ass and was shaped like an ant when I was growing up, which contributed to my eating disorder. She blamed pretty much everything on me growing up and bullied me pretty badly. She was also very aware that I was injuring myself when I was younger and didn't try for help, something which I forgave her for later on in life because she felt really strongly about it. Most of what I listed, I forgave her for before cutting her off. Now, there's a few points I'd like to highlight here. So, given Shannon's previous posts, where she's been shown to shit talk people and lie about people in the past, it's hard to take this statement as fact. I would not, just reading this post, be inclined to trust Shannon considering she smeared Emily so severely in the past, given the fact that she was apparently stalking Emily. I think it's very plausible that Shannon may have been harassing her sibling and then blasting them on this thread to make them seem like a worse person while slandering them. Especially because Shannon provides absolutely no evidence for any of the claims she makes. This seems very questionable. However, obviously this was 3 years ago, and it maybe isn't so fair to ask Shannon to share photos of this sort of thing when she was less making an accusation and more just replying to a general quiz. Shannon also mentions how her sibling had said that their partner was abusive to them and had told other people about this, which Shannon apparently found insulting because their partner has PTSD and is a victim of abuse, which is irrelevant given the fact that apparently Emily Artful has accused their current partner of and also given the fact that Emily accused them of abuse in the past, and given the fact that Shannon's sibling is also claiming that they were abusive to Shannon, I believe there is a question to be had about Shannon's safety with their partner, because I do believe that their partner could possibly cause harm to them, and the fact that their sibling is sharing that apparently is the case, I feel genuinely worried. Shannon also brings up the fact that she was living in her car in a city where protests were happening, and apparently she was being told off by her sister for posting about this, and she says that her sister said her safety wasn't important, and all of this shit, but again, no evidence, simple general claim, Shannon's word isn't very reliable, and also, Shannon literally chose to be homeless. It was a decision she made. This wasn't something that was something she couldn't control. Shannon continues this thread by claiming that her sibling had made a post publicly, apparently bashing their whole family, and also their brother who had passed away only a couple years prior. This does seem like a lie Shannon would tell, knowing Shannon's told similar lies before, but considering that Shannon's sibling hasn't actually responded to this at all, or acknowledged or denied these claims, it is genuinely hard to tell whether this claim would be true. Again, that still wouldn't justify the harassment, etc. that Shannon put her sibling through, even if that was the case. Okay, we've got through everything Shannon said up to this point about their sibling. Now, let's go through their siblings' posts. They claim that Shannon doxed them while they were hospitalized, supporting the claim that Shannon was in fact the owner of the lolcow account, and they also state that Shannon was the one to do this sort of thing. They publicly offer to answer any questions about this whole situation for this one day, providing some input. However, they don't provide many sources or screenshots to support any claims they make. They state that they still believe that Anthony is abusive to Shannon, which supports Emily's claim of Anthony's abuse. They state at multiple times that they caught Shannon harassing Emily using sock puppet accounts, which again further solidifies Emily's claim and makes it also seem like Shannon was involved in the harassment if this is the case, which would neuter Shannon's defense that it was just their partner and not them. Shannon's sibling also subtweets at points in the past before this whole situation, Shannon apparently sending them money sporadically despite being out of Shannon's sibling's life. Possibly as a bribe or as a way to convince Shannon's sibling to speak to Shannon again. They also state within this tweet that Shannon has harassed them, further supporting the belief that Shannon harasses people she doesn't like. And that's where the thread ends. Sadly, all this thread really does is prove Emily's claims are apparently correct, that Shannon was involved in the harassment, and that Shannon has been this liar and manipulator for all this time. And once again, they also imply that Shannon is the person behind the lolcow account, which again just further solidifies the claims made against Shannon by their own relative now, which again makes them seem worse by default. To start this video, I'd like to start by looking over Creepshow Art's editor's video that they made discussing how they've been betrayed by Shannon, as far as I can tell, Shannon highlighted herself in their posts to not actually care about the feelings of these people when Shannon said that they weren't real friends and that they had nobody that was actually supporting them, while their editor was simultaneously DMing them, saying that they were there for them and a lot of other people were as well, and also how Shannon has refused to tell any of her friends anything about this situation. It's so incredibly upsetting. But Shannon's editors and artists have come out speaking out against Shannon. Now, Shannon's artist made a post where they basically said that yeah, they did art for Shannon, but they won't do art for Shannon anymore unless they do the second commission Shannon asked them for, because they do need the money. However, they don't agree with anything Shannon's done, and they are being completely unjustly harassed for their involvement with Shannon before knowing what Shannon had been up to, which simply isn't their fault. They shouldn't be blamed for something they simply couldn't have known. But on the bigger response, I guess, the more lengthy response, Shannon's editor made a video. I'd like to play some clips from that now and give my opinion from what's stated. So let's click the play button on that now.
I'm not going to be talking about a lot of what other people have talked about. This is just my own personal statement, whatever, because I've still been getting a lot of DMs, comments, things like that, asking me to address this situation, and I thought I had done it decently, but I guess ultimately I had to record this.
You see, this is a point that becomes a genuine problem. I've noticed this with a lot of content creators, be it Repzilla, or Creepshow's editor, or everyone else that Shannon's ever been involved with, but for some reason people believe that because Shannon's being called out, all of these people need to make videos denouncing what Shannon's done, and stating all of this stuff, putting aside their mental health to make a public statement for the sake of the viewers, which I think is absolutely stupid. People aren't obligated to make videos because you want them to. You shouldn't harass them like people have been doing to creators like Repzilla for not wanting to cover drama about their friends. You aren't entitled to their videos. You aren't entitled to them making a statement on this situation, and harassing them into making one is not the right way to approach it, as you've got to consider this from their viewpoint. They've had a friend that's betrayed them, they've found out their friend has been doing all this terrible shit, and now they have no idea what to do. That friend is now blowing them off, and now they're being slammed by the internet for apparently not speaking against this creator. I feel like this is an insane problem. Content creators should not be being blasted because they don't want to rush their grieving or rush their dealing with the situation in private with their mental health for the sake of the public. That's simply not something a viewer should be entitled to, and a content creator should only speak on something if they want to.
I tend to try and distance myself from the whole internet drama sort of thing, so I never really knew too much about the topics of the video. I just knew what was presented to me in the voiceover and any screenshots or video clips that Shannon wanted me to include in the video. And I think, first of all, I want to apologize if I ever had a negative effect on anybody through any of the videos that I made for Shannon.
See, this is a point where I feel like Shannon's editor is being unfairly blasted for things that they simply aren't responsible for. When you hire an editor, you're paying someone to edit together the video you want, not what they want. So their opinion almost doesn't get considered into that video at all. Whether they agree with what you're saying, at the end of the day, they're being paid to produce a product. People get paid in multiple different jobs to do work that sometimes they don't agree with or support. An editor shouldn't be the one apologizing for views or behaviors shared in content, because either way, whether the editor was editing it or not, that content would still be out there, and that's still the viewpoint of the actual content creator. The editor is simply just editing it and giving them the product back for money. They are literally contracted work, basically. I feel like it's ridiculous to blame an editor for something that they didn't do because they're guilty by association, because they edited those videos on things they weren't educated about because they didn't need to be, because they were an editor, not a YouTuber.
This is a really hard video for me to make. Shannon was a good friend and one of the biggest cheerleaders and supporters of me and my channel. Very much kind of like a mentor figure. She would sit down and help me think of content ideas, made my thumbnails better, helped me kind of go through my analytics and figure out what was working and what wasn't. Very supportive of my growth on the platform and gave me advice constantly. And it's been very hard for me to wrap my head around this whole situation when the person involved was someone who I was close to.
I think this is another important thing for the editor to mention, because a lot of people have been going around and discrediting this video because, oh, he's just an editor, why does his opinion matter? Basically, everybody could comment on this situation. But what people aren't taking into account is that despite being an editor, Mbird was also friends with Shannon. They had a lot of talks with Shannon. They saw the insides and outs of Shannon's videos before they were edited. They got to see Shannon's raw opinion. I don't know if they actually cut out anything. I don't know how much editing they actually did on the content, but also, they knew Shannon on a personal level. Shannon had helped them with their channel. They have actual experiences with Shannon, which led to them making this video. I get people mocking it for the title or whatever, but it just feels disgraceful to pass off this whole video as some way of milking in or cashing in when someone gets cancelled, when they're actually stating a fair fact, and they only made this video because their Twitter statement wasn't considered enough by a lot of people who were foaming at the mouth at the thought of Mbird making a video on this.
I woke up the morning that shit kind of hit the fan, and I saw on her story it was just a black text that said thinking about quitting YouTube. And I didn't know what was going on at the time, so I sent her a message being like, I am here for you if you need to talk, whatever. And I was concerned, both as her friend and as the person who edits her videos. I was kind of shocked by the statement. And then I went on Twitter and saw what was happening. Shannon and I had a very, very brief conversation that day on Instagram. I know myself and countless others told her that we were there for her, and then she posted on her story that she had no real friends and no one was there for her. And it just kind of stung, and I didn't know what was going on.
And this again highlights how Shannon has hurt so many people with her disingenuous ways. Just like many other people that Shannon has wronged in the past, Mbird is one of those people. Shannon claimed that Mbird wasn't a real friend, or that no one was there for them when Mbird was there for them. Shannon didn't speak to them at all on what was going on, giving them only a brief conversation about this situation, which only feels like a way of leaving your friends in the dark when they're trying to understand and support you and be there for you in that time, leaving them only to be left with their own thought or to believe that you're betraying them, especially when right after you post publicly saying that you have no real friends. It just kind of comes across like, once again, Shannon was using more people to benefit herself, and it makes it come out like Shannon was referring to people like Mbird as not real friends, and just people that she was using to benefit herself, which seems incredibly scummy, and maybe Shannon was just really upset and didn't think about how this came across, but it definitely does come across as inconsiderate to the people that actually were there for Shannon, and I don't really feel like it's a fair statement for Shannon to make. And this can be linked back to the Hopeless Peaches situation, because if you don't know, Hopeless Peaches was a content creator that Shannon pretended to be great friends with, constantly making videos of Peaches saying that Peaches was great, that she had all this promise, that Peaches was an amazing creator, all of these plethora of different compliments, even letting Peaches take over videos on her channel at times. And then one day, Shannon came out with a call out against Peaches, where she alleged that Peaches was a terrible friend, that Peaches had harassed her in private, that Peaches was doing all the shit talking behind her back, and that Peaches was someone that genuinely didn't deserve what she had. And combining that with the lolcow post shitting on Peaches, it really comes across like Shannon was being disingenuous in her post about Peaches, especially because if you watch my Hopeless Peaches documentary, the video that's pinned at the front of my channel, I go through every allegation Shannon makes, and literally none of them have any actual merit when you see the full context and evidence against Shannon. It's incredibly manipulative of Shannon to frame Peaches to be a villain, and it really only comes from the fact that Peaches criticized Shannon from some of her videos, which just seems incredibly scummy at best and completely fucked up at worst. The problem is that this really shows more about Shannon than you'd even think, because Shannon and Peaches knew each other for a long time. Shannon knew Peaches struggled with mental health, Shannon knew a whole fuck ton more about Peaches, and then when Shannon stood by and let Prisonmate Luke make a video where Prisonmate Luke ran with Shannon's claims and alleged Peaches was a suicide baiter, Shannon shared this video apparently on her lolcow account, and a whole bunch more, while not denouncing the fact that she wrongfully was supporting a video that claimed that Peaches was a suicide baiter, knowing that Peaches struggled with mental health issues, was incredibly fucked up of Shannon, and it's so disappointing to see the fact that she said nothing about it. And it really shows more about how Shannon gave no fucks about how Peaches was mentally, just like she allegedly didn't with Emily Artful. It just shows that Shannon didn't care, and that Shannon just wanted what was best for her as a brand, I guess. And Peaches was kind of a stepping stone, someone she could backstab, like she always does with this petty fucking Mean Girls drama. And she didn't care if Peaches got hurt, she knew that Peaches was struggling, she knew that Peaches was at risk to her own life, and not once did she make any effort, and she was still shitting on Peaches after I had a conversation in emails with Shannon after Peaches had attempted suicide. Shannon was still making private posts mocking Peaches past that point, which is fucked up. And it's fucked up that Shannon kept speaking about Peaches past that point. It's fucked up that Shannon made no active effort outside of those emails to actually support Peaches, other than basically threatening Peaches a few days later to keep her silent on speaking out against the injustice Shannon did against Peaches, which you can see the whole thing for in Peaches' video. Shannon has fucked up so many people's lives like Peaches, and put it in the position where Peaches was considering quitting YouTube. She lost all opportunity of reaching 100k subs. I believe she dropped like 20k. And she thought that her channel was dead. I told her she'd recover it, but she thought that she'd never have a chance again. So it's great to see that people have at least checked out Peaches because of this drama, and she's got her 100k subs now that she rightfully deserves for her amazing content. And just to clarify, I'm not discounting some of the real experiences people have had with Peaches. What I'm saying is, a lot of what Shannon said was fucked up and completely outlandish. But with that being said, I am going to end this video here, because I believe that there's not really much more I need to say at this point on the Shannon allegations. If more people come out with allegations against Shannon, I will cover them. However, this was supposed to be the little bow on the top to cover all the final little things that paint the full story of what happened in the Shannon situation, and hopefully I don't have to speak about this again. Hopefully Shannon learns. Hopefully Shannon just doesn't quit YouTube and never return and fucking prove herself innocent, or at least apologize to the people she fucking wronged. It's just so sad that all Shannon seems to view this as is the reason that she just needs to jump ship now. Seems like Shannon never had any actual motive to do YouTube, and from the interview she did with a smaller creator in the past that Omnia highlights in her newest video, it seems like Shannon's goal was never really about actually making content she cared about. And that's really genuinely upsetting. Okay, starting from the bottom, this is a piece of evidence that I feel like will have more relation later as we get further in the video. This is a tweet from a few weeks ago now where Emily Artful artful highlights the fact that Shannon seemingly copied her hair and flipped it basically. So if you look at these two images, you'll see that Shannon has a very, very, very similar hairstyle to Emily within these photos, which is definitely suspicious given how many similarities there are between Emily and Shannon's stories and all of that shit. So it seems very suspicious that this would also be like going on. Feels weird, but it will make more sense why I've mentioned this even though it was old information as we get further in the video. And before I get into the main information, there's a few smaller points that I'd like to cover because I feel like they are still important. Now, this is a very wobbly one. This is the least conclusive of any evidence, so please literally just take this as skepticism. I don't want to see a single comment being like, wow, this is fact. Okay, expose Shannon. So basically, there was a podcast that was recently uncovered that's been covering the Shannon drama. It's just got this random name, and all it's posted since being created is just been about the Shannon drama. And the first video on this podcast is incredibly questionable, as if you listen to these audio takes that I'm gonna leave here.
Today's topic is about creep show art. She's known as Shannon, so we're just gonna call her Shannon. I am not Shannon.
You'll hear that the voice of this podcaster is very similar to Shannon's voice, which you'll hear now.
Hey guys, it's Shannon, and today's video is actually something I'm really excited about.
Now, while this isn't anything conclusive in itself, there are a few points that were made in this Reddit post that I'm going to show on screen that seemingly tie these two quite closely together and make it seem quite suspicious who's running this account, and it feels very odd that an account with a similar accent, similar tone, similar grammar, similar kind of speech pattern to Shannon's would appear around the same time that Shannon's disappeared and start making posts defending Shannon. It seems questionable, but obviously this is just skepticism, and it could literally be the whole situation where people just randomly harass women and say, "Are you creep show?" and then bonk them. So literally, take this with a grain of salt, but I do find it quite weird that this podcast would appear, and you can listen to it yourself and tell me your thoughts down below, because I do think it's definitely odd that someone with such a similar tone and cadence to Shannon would appear in such a similar time frame. But yeah, again, skepticism. It's odd that this voice of this podcaster slowly becomes less and less like Shannon's as it goes on, that they state a lot of things that directly go against Shannon's behavior in a way that seems so jarring, like it just comes out of nowhere. And I just feel like the timing of it seems very coincidental that this would be made out of nowhere. But again, skepticism, okay? Please don't take this as fact. I just find it odd that like the first podcast sounds like dead on to Shannon, and then the newest one, the voice has just changed completely. It seems really fucking out of left field, if you get what I'm saying. But it's really not much of a serious thing, so I'm just gonna leave that there and let you see what you have to say, and I'll keep my eye on this podcast for the future. But now let's get into something that does hold a lot more merit. Now, this is in regards to a post that Emily Artful made recently, where she said that she was basically going to stop talking about this drama anymore, that she's kind of come to terms with everything, and that she didn't intend to further cover the Shannon drama because she believed that she'd basically said everything she needed to, and although her PTSD and more isn't going to disappear, she believes that she's told her story, she believes that she's got her, like, justification, she believes that she's got what she wanted out of this, and now she can step away unless anything really important comes out. And the thing is, a lot of really important stuff has come out since then, which has obviously spurred my video. Now, I am gonna just say, Emily, thank you for bringing this information to light. You have allowed a lot of people's voices to be heard, you've allowed a lot of people to learn who Shannon actually is behind the scenes, and you've allowed a lot of people, like Hopeless Peaches, that were wrongfully harassed by Shannon to get their due diligence, and it's sad that Peaches has also quit YouTube. It's really sad that that's happened, but it's good that Peaches came to kind of terms with what's happened, and she's been able to get her justice against Shannon for what Shannon's done against her, and that was only made possible because of you, Emily. So, thank you for this. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to speak to you again. You were really nice in your comment to me, and I do appreciate how much you've done for all of the victims of Shannon's behavior. If what's been alleged against Shannon is true, I have to state that for legal reasons. But, you know what I mean. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for being able to bring your voice out to help other people as well. But obviously this isn't where the story ends, as Emily Artful came back with a post that has literally been the smoking gun of all smoking guns that ties Shannon to this whole situation more than anything else. Now, I'm gonna cover these two pieces of evidence that I think are insanely questionable and make Shannon's behavior in this whole situation seem way more than suspicious, like holy fucking shit. But before I go into them, I am going to link a whole Google Drive that has all of Shannon's deleted videos, or most of them, in it, so that you can go through the evidence yourself, and you'll see more and more of the suspicious similarities between Shannon's claims and the evidence here, and all of this shit. You'll see how suspicious it is that Shannon particularly took down these videos that seem to always have some sort of relation to the drama she's in. Seems very odd, but there are a few videos in particular that have a lot of very questionable similarities to this whole situation that make a lot of people way more questioned, and it makes stories like Cultgeist about Shannon, seeing that Shannon was apparently harassing Emily, seem to have a lot more merit. Now, here is a clip of Shannon directly admitting in one of her videos that she has cyberstalked people and that she believes she's really good at it. I'll play the clip to you now.
So before I get started, I do have a confession to make. I am essentially Neve from Catfish, with how fucking good I am at online stalking. Like, I'm amazing at it, guys. You have no idea. Honestly, a lot of people have tried to make me feel bad about how good I am at it, and I don't fucking care at this point.
Now, here in that clip, you'll also notice that Shannon mentions that other people close to her had been trying to get her to stop, or had been talking to her about it, or speaking negatively about it towards her. Now, if you take that in regards to the fact that Cultgeist had said that they'd seen what Shannon was doing, and they were telling her not to, and obviously Shannon's sister had also seen it, it does bring a lot more merit to those claims against Shannon, and once again, this is like a smoking gun of smoking guns. It's evidence of Shannon directly admitting to cyber stalking people online, which, considering the fact that there's so much evidence against Shannon for Emily, the fact that it just coincidentally seems that Emily's been harassed by Shannon's partner, or Shannon, for literally years, and then the harassment stops when conveniently Shannon gets involved and Shannon gets threatened that her safety may be put in danger by, like, legal response, and also all of a sudden this account that appears that would have been 10 at the time somehow has all of this information and was the one that was doing it, and that was the source that Shannon got this information from. It doesn't add up at all. But now seeing a clip from Shannon that says that she has cyberstalked people in the past brings way more skepticism to this whole situation, and it makes it seem way more likely that Shannon is the person responsible for this whole situation. And I know I state in all these videos that these are allegations, but I do think that these allegations have a lot of merit to them when there are clips of Shannon admitting to cyberstalking people, and there's so much fucking proof to tie Shannon to this whole situation in so many different ways, and the fact that Shannon's only response has been, oh, well, I was IP spoofed, which isn't a thing you could do to harass Emily in this way, or make these lolcow posts or anything like that. It just seems so incredibly questionable that Shannon's only defense has no fucking merit towards it, and then there's clips out there of Shannon admitting to cyberstalking people. Now, I am going to give credit where it's due. This clip does at points seem sarcastic, but the fact that there is so much evidence against Shannon at this point is fucking ridiculous that anyone could possibly try and defend Shannon here until Shannon gives justified reasoning for everything that's been claimed against her. But considering that she was just thinking about quitting YouTube, it seems like we're never going to get that justification, and that is incredibly sad. It is fucking disappointing that Shannon has just seemingly disappeared after all of this shit has come up against her without making any response. It seems way too coincidental. But this isn't even the smoking gun of smoking guns. You see, in a storytime video that Shannon made, I believe that this storytime was one of those sarcastic ones. I believe the central focus behind this video was that Shannon was pretending to be kind of cancelled or whatever. Now, you'll notice that the screenshotted account that Shannon highlights in this video was a account that has also been a sock puppet that has been harassing Emily and initially incited the argument between Emily and Shannon, or the drama between Emily and Shannon all those years ago. Now, I find it incredibly weird that Shannon would seemingly have access to a sock puppet account which had also stirred on drama with Emily. Now, considering this and tying it in with the fact that Shannon has so much evidence against her correlating to her harassment of Emily, and now she's also apparently the owner of a sock puppet account that's been harassing Emily, it doesn't add up at all. I'd consider this way more than just skepticism at this point. This is a fucking smoking gun and a half, and it's sad that I have to just state that this is allegations, but this is allegations. My opinion may be that Shannon's guilty, but at the end of the day, that is my opinion. And not even to mention the fact that in the video, Shannon is drawing a character that seems very similar in appearance to Emily, and also in other videos she's drawing characters that seem similar to Emily, and within those videos she apparently, according to Emily, mocks their appearance and stuff like that. It seems once again incredibly suspicious that all of this stuff seems to be revolving around Shannon, Emily, and so much fucking more, and including the fact that Shannon's admitted to cyberstalking in the past. It seems really odd that Shannon would seem to believe that people would believe this story to any extent. I simply don't buy it, in my personal opinion. These allegations were surfaced by Omnia and Kai, who recently went through their private chats with Creepshow Art in a group chat on Creepshow Art's now deleted Discord account, which, given the fact that they have a bunch of circumstantial evidence, I believe that it is conclusive enough to say it's likely Shannon's account. Now, Omnia and Kai came out showing that in their private conversations with Shannon, they had a lot of situations where many of the points that Shannon is highlighted to be doing on lolcow seem to coincide with a lot of the DMs she was sharing in private in this group chat. So, I feel like this evidence is way more than enough to cover for a video. So, before I begin, I'd like to quickly mention that if you want to check out Kai and Omnia's video, you definitely should. It's on Kai's channel, and it's a great video that goes in depth on everything, and this video here is going to give my opinions on the evidence they've presented. So, if you'd like to see that evidence in all its added context, feel free to watch that video beforehand. It's a really good video. And, for legal reasons, I'd like to make a quick disclaimer here. This video is all allegations, everything shared within it is alleged, and please don't sue me. And also, just as another note, trigger warnings for manipulation, doxing, and a whole bunch more. Hope that makes sense? Okay, let's get into it. So, Kai's video starts with a segment from Omnia, and in that segment, Omnia starts by firstly showing that all of the screenshots, despite being a deleted user, are likely the messages shared by Shannon. And we know that because at the start of the conversation, which was months ago, so it's unlikely this was planned ahead of time by Omnia to frame Shannon, the conversation starts by saying, "Hi Shannon," and then this account replies to that, basically acknowledging that they are Shannon. And I believe, given the fact that it is known that Omnia and Kai had connection with Shannon, it is very reliable that this is likely the DMs that Shannon did have with Omnia and Kai, and I doubt that they would make this up, but obviously I still have to say alleged for the sake of legal reasons. Now, Omnia shows the fact that in these conversations with Shannon, Shannon very quickly brings up a conversation and argument she had with her sibling, which she intentionally misgenders, according to Omnia, to be sister. Now, this is obviously the first sign that Shannon has malicious intentions behind this discussion, as, again, nobody intentionally misgenders someone if they actually care about them or respect them to any extent. Now, Shannon starts by detailing the fact that her and her sibling have had a terrible past. Now, Shannon goes into this by explaining that, or according to Shannon at least, things are terrible all the time, and that her sister is literally insane, and one of the most vitriolic people Shannon has ever met, and apparently that they are a very manipulative person that only subscribes to the idea that there is no such thing as truth, which is insane, and apparently her sister made a bunch of claims that were outlandish, like calling her a Nazi, and a whole bunch more, where apparently Shannon's sibling also claimed that Shannon's husband was abusive, and apparently his abuse wouldn't count because he's a white man. Now, there's no evidence for this, but it's a claim Shannon made, so I'm gonna hear it out, and I like how Shannon ends by saying, "White men can have PTSD. No shit, Shannon." But Shannon continues by stating that in the past few months, she's apparently been talking to her sibling again and having brief conversations, and after their sibling posted that they needed money, Shannon replied by sending them money. Now, this would normally seem like a genuine and sincere gesture, however, knowing the fact that Shannon has in the past done actions that have come across manipulative to get on the good side with content creators, I do feel like there is skepticism to be had here, especially because it's been seen that Shannon has shit-talked people she's publicly stated to be great friends with, and all of that. It's hard to trust her word in these situations, especially considering her new community post is, according to everyone, a fucking lie. But Shannon continues by stating that her sibling apparently blocked her when she reached out to see if she could send them a birthday gift, and Shannon then checked out their Twitter and saw that they posted a thread about how people aren't supportive of them and demand too much of them, and Shannon says that that's weird. Now, Shannon then continues by stating that she'll send $1,000 because it was their birthday, and she never heard any response until her dad called her while she was sleeping, and apparently she gets contacted over an emergency. Now, this emergency is over the fact that Shannon's sibling apparently got hospitalized. Now, Shannon then calls the hospital, and when she calls the hospital, apparently, despite being crying on the phone to her sibling, they say nothing and then hang up, and then Shannon calls again, and then they do that over and over. And Shannon basically highlights the fact that apparently their sibling didn't want to talk to them while they were in the hospital. Now, I do feel like this is justified, considering the fact that the sibling often responds to the family and mentions the family as estranged family. I do feel like it is an easy way to view the situation, as Shannon's sibling did not want to speak to her family, and obviously Shannon's sibling had no intention to ever have to speak to them again, unless incredibly necessary. Now, I know that Shannon later on in these screenshots mentions the fact that their family was put down as emergency contacts, which, again, I don't know the validity of, but even if that was the case, I don't feel like if the sibling was capable of answering the call, that is an emergency situation to them, and I feel like it is at their own discretion as a 30-year-old woman to decide whether they want to respond to that phone call or not, especially because it seems, according to Shannon's misgendering and a whole bunch more that the sibling has expressed, that Shannon, and likely the family by extension, weren't very acceptive of the sibling, allegedly. And Shannon then continues detailing about how she's so stressed about her sister and how she's so disappointed and all of this shit that once again extends the idea that Shannon's sister has been a terrible person that's mistreated them, which would go along with the public story that Shannon shared. However, there's one thing that Omnia pointed out that I thought was an incredibly huge piece of evidence in this whole situation, and that is the fact that if you pay attention to the dates that Shannon shares these messages about her sibling, now, I'm not going to show the whole messages, but if you look at the date and the time that these were done, according to Omnia, the thread on Kiwi Farms that was posted, including the docs of Shannon's sibling, was posted not 50 minutes after Shannon had vented in private to Omnia and other content creators about her experience with her sibling. If you don't find that to be coincidental timing between an hour of a fallout, between an hour of a conversation in private, and then an hour of posting something publicly, if you don't find that to be another one of Shannon's many inconsistencies, I find this to be incredibly questionable. It is almost outlandish to me to presume that Shannon couldn't be the person, or there shouldn't be at least doubt put on Shannon's innocence here, when the timing lines up so coincidentally. But that isn't the only coincidence that's shared here. Kai then tunes in to share their experience with Shannon and one of the private conversations they had with Shannon over the Hopeless Peaches drama. Now, in this conversation, Kai Weeks brings up at multiple times to Shannon that she should respond publicly to this situation, and she should address what she's done, and she should either apologize to Peaches or make a response where she shows that everything she's claimed about Peaches is true, because that's simply the only way that this situation would ever end. Now, Shannon, in response to that, makes a bunch of excuses that simply I find to be incredibly doubtful, and once again are one of Shannon's many coincidences that she seems to get away with making, and at some point we have to realize that there is no plausible benefit of the doubt that we can give to Shannon in this situation when everything she seems to state seems to be a coincidence or a possibility, or, you know, she just coincidentally got hacked, etc, etc. You get the point I'm trying to make. But in this conversation, Shannon claims a bunch of things, one of those points being that she does have all the evidence to prove that Peaches is guilty. But because in one of the conversations with Peaches brings up something that's close to Shannon or private information, Shannon can't show that information, like Shannon couldn't just censor it, which, again, Kai mentions this seems fucking ridiculous. If there's something in the conversation you don't want to show publicly, censor it. It's really not that hard. I find it outlandish that Shannon believes that it's impossible to censor a screenshot in her video, and she just simply can't use the evidence as such. But also, Shannon also uses the excuse that she's going through a lot of things privately, which means that she can't respond to shit publicly, which again seems fucking ridiculous. She's capable of responding to something publicly on her channel in any way, and given Shannon claims she's so innocent, this would seemingly just be another way for her to get like a banger video while proving herself to be innocent at the exact same time and boosting her reputation within the community. If she had the proof to prove herself innocent, this would be a win-win situation. But Shannon continues by also saying that her only real response in her mind, the only one she's comfortable with doing, would be to either respond by taking down her videos and saying nothing publicly, or not taking them down at all. Now, this, seems fucking ridiculous. If Shannon can't prove herself innocent, if Shannon can't make a response justifying her stance, she should make a post explaining why, at the minimum, she took down these videos. But she claims that she just will take them down and disappear if she decides to take them down and never mention it again, which again seems fucking ridiculous. There is no justifiable reason why you can make a video claiming a bunch of things about someone, get called out for some of those claims being completely unreliable, like in my video I highlight how none of them seem to have any ground to stand on, and then Shannon's only response to that is, well, I'll just take down those videos silently and say nothing about it. That is a terrible response to this situation, especially from a creator that's very experienced in these situations, and Shannon knows that. Again, it's another excuse. It seems incredibly unrealistic that Shannon wants people to suspend their disbelief to believe that Shannon has the evidence, but because something private was discussed there, she can't show it, and that Shannon shouldn't have to apologize to Peaches if she's lied, and also that Shannon should just be able to take down a video privately without saying anything at all. Like, that won't make the situation so much worse. I simply don't buy it. Once again, this is my own opinion, and not a fact, but I don't buy the fact that Shannon believes that she could just take down 2 videos with millions of views about another content creator that have destroyed their career for months now, and just silently take them down like nothing ever happened in the situation where Shannon starts receiving backlash for those videos without addressing any of the criticism against her, without either proving herself innocent or proving that the claims she made are fact. With that being said, let's delve into the recent Creepshow allegations, which starts on the Half-Baked podcast episode featuring Some Ordinary Gamers, where people like Nicholas Diorio, Turkey Tom, and others were giving their perspective on the Creepshow drama, and Nicholas Diorio decided to be a little bit of a snitch, and told the fact that they'd heard from Gabby Hanna that Creepshow had reached out to Gabby Hanna on a new number, and had told them to discuss Ready to Glare, someone that a few weeks earlier Creepshow was love-bombing, sending flowers to their house. This is a serious claim, and as such, I'm just gonna leave it to Nick to explain what they experienced, so I'll play that clip now.
Oh god, do you want me to leak something on this podcast that I shouldn't leak?
Obviously.
Go for it.
I can't say what YouTuber it is, but I really, you know what? There's not really a way I can get around it. I don't really care.
Just do it. Just go.
Maybe we'll cut it later, but like, Gabby Hanna told me that Creepshow Art just hit her up a couple days ago from a random phone number or whatever, and said, you need to make a video on Ready to Glare.
Whoa, why? I like Ready to Glare. Why?
Because Ready to Glare, like, disowned her publicly. So apparently she's such a sicko. She's still trying to get even behind the scenes.
Dude.
While this claim doesn't necessarily have screenshots provided publicly that would prove this claim 100% true, it does still have some validity, as Nicholas Diorio claims that Gabby Hanna provided screenshots that they vetted and could confirm were seemingly real screenshots of messages between Gabby Hanna and Creepshow, where Creepshow was trying to get Gabby Hanna to cancel Ready to Glare. And while again this goes up to whether you trust Nick's wording, it is an important thing to mention, as I do believe it highlights a clear pattern of behavior in Shannon if this claim is true, as it would highlight the fact that once again Shannon has seemingly love-bombed a friend. As I mentioned, she sent flowers to Ready to Glare's house a few days before being cancelled, and Ready to Glare initially defended Shannon, and after learning more information, Ready to Glare turned against Shannon, believing that Shannon had backstabbed them and severely hurt them. And now that Ready to Glare is speaking out against Shannon, and Shannon doesn't have Ready to Glare under their thumb, they've seemingly decided to try and ruin Ready to Glare's credibility, and have requested Gabby Hanna bash Ready to Glare to pieces, because Shannon is personally hurt by Ready to Glare for calling them out and not supporting them, even though Creepshow in private, according to Tipster, was telling content creators they were friends with to separate themselves and distance themselves publicly. It seems like a really weird, ironic, hypocritical argument that you're then upset that someone is doing something you asked them to do, and simultaneously, if Ready to Glare doesn't act in the way you expect them to, that doesn't mean that you should go to content creators and ask them to smear that person's name, especially when you were seemingly friends with them. However, this is seemingly a pattern where Shannon will love bomb the person that she wants to get on her side, mainly commentators or content creators, with my own experiences, which is something I explained on a stream with Spokter, where Shannon tries to get close to to you by playing towards things that they recognize you need, or trying to get on your good side so that you're less likely to call them out publicly or call them out to a larger extent publicly, otherwise at which point they won't ever engage with you again and will try and get your credibility smeared further, which is something I personally have experienced and can attest to. I had an experience where Shannon was trying to get on my good side, helping me with a situation that I needed support in a time where I needed it, and trying to come across like the selfless hero. However, when I released my critical video of Shannon 3 days later, which they were aware I was making by the way, it wasn't some kind of backstabby thing, Shannon stopped responding to everything I said. It appeared to me like they were trying to play to my good side so that they could tone down the criticism they were getting in my video, and when they realized they didn't get that, they would cut the ties. Again, that is just my personal opinion and I could be biased there, so take that as literally water under the bridge. However, it is important to note something that Nicholas Durio brought up. The fact that while in a group chat with Nicholas Durio and some ordinary gamers, Shannon had made a gift of money to someone of $2,000 to help them when they were struggling, which obviously that's a noble act no matter the motives, as supporting someone in that way is a good thing. However, Nicholas Durio and some ordinary gamers highlight that that is a questionable act under the new microscope that Shannon's been put under, as it seemingly shows the pattern once again that Shannon saw that she was in a group chat with YouTubers like Nicholas Durio, some ordinary gamers, creators that do commentary videos that could call out Shannon, and Shannon wanted to come across to them like a better person, and as such, Shannon decided to give this person money.
Yeah, so like I don't want to say who it was, but you were in that chat with me, Muda, right?
Yeah.
And like some kid's like begging for money or whatever, and she was like the first one, like, I'll just send you of money, right? Like she wasn't like a total asshole around us, so I thought she was
Dude,
decent.
but like, how much money did she give to that kid though?
Like $2,000 or something. I thought.
Did she get it back?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I think it was like, hey, dude, I need to make rent. My family's gonna go home. This is some cringe.
Okay,
shit.
but listen, think about it like this: if she spent $2,000 and we're all sitting in that group chat, this is exactly what we're gonna be talking about. Yo, she's not a terrible person.
I know.
2,000. How much is $2,000 at the end of the day when you're getting the goodwill of me, you, and every other person? Like.
And dude, she was like rolling up to my streams, whatever, just giving me $60 a pop every night.
Come on, man. That's...
But especially given like the moral she espoused in her videos, that wouldn't even make sense because we're all okay with like edgy shit, you know what I mean? She was not at all. Like she like went after people on her channel for making edgy jokes. You know that?
Now again, this is literally just the opinions of the people that are in the chat, like everyone else that's come out against Shannon with all of their different variety of horrifying experiences that they're claiming have happened. Obviously, these are all just someone's personal experiences. However, when you put these experiences together and consider them to a larger extent, I feel like there is a lot more validity to what is being said here. It does appear that there is a pattern where Shannon will try and play to the good side of a content creator, will try to win their trust and favor, and if the content creator turns against them, they won't engage with that content creator anymore, or they'll actively try and smear that content creator, or get another content creator to call them out, which seems like a pretty thing to do if you ask me. Now I'd like to sidetrack and sway the ship just a little bit because I'd like to focus on the fact that Shannon made a new number, according to Gabby Hanna, to contact Gabby Hanna, which highlights the fact that Shannon was ignoring and actively evading calls from the people that had valid questions for her, her friends that she supported and cared about so much and was always standing by and was this tough, loyal that Shannon portrayed herself to be. The fact that Shannon immediately cut ties upon receiving backlash, made a new number, and tried to evade this whole situation, while simultaneously ignoring the people calling her, trying to speak to her, and posting publicly on her Instagram account about how no one was supporting her in her friend group. People made efforts for days to contact Shannon ahead of speaking out against Shannon, and Shannon didn't respond to anyone. Shannon made herself as hard as possible to reach out to, closing her email and any other platforms you could possibly exploit to get in contact with Shannon, making it so that it would be almost impossible to reach out to her, with her Discord being gone, Instagram being on, any other social media accounts being gone basically other than her channel, and disappearing from her numbers altogether. However, more recently, Creepshow has started showing up again, with her Instagram account being reactivated, and although she hasn't posted anything, it does appear that she is active on social media again to some extent, probably just learning like she was allegedly doing on an anonymous account before. However, I don't think any of her Instagram posts are now available anymore, and it doesn't appear as such that she is actively responding to anything on that account. However, veering just slightly off of the road while still keeping it on track with the general consensus of this video, speaking on other accounts of Shannon apparently being online, My previous videos kept one door still open about Shannon's allegations, with that being an apparent podcast from a person called Odessa Franklin that many believed was Shannon without a doubt, and was trying to claim that Shannon was this person because of similarities between their voice, which changed over time with the podcast being longer, and many of the similarities between the two, or the polar opposites in their personalities that felt almost manufactured. Now, I'd like to quickly give my opinion on this from looking into it further. Now, while there definitely is a lot to be questioned here with this account, and while I think there's always a possibility that this could have been Shannon that was involved in this account, I feel like the skepticism that too many people brought onto this situation led to Odessa Franklin receiving way more harassment than they deserved, and as such they deactivated their podcast, which I don't think was a good thing. I don't think they should have been silenced from having an opinion, and I feel like the fact that people were running around like it was proven claims, which is something I tried to make very clear I wasn't doing, is a problem that led to people going after them. There was a video made by Fagos that really highlighted this point quite well, but a lot of people have been called Shannon based on voice similarities, and it's ended up in this cycle of sorts where people are just going, "Are you Creepshow?" and then immediately beating up the person before they even get the chance to respond, as you can see with this clip here from Fagos' video. But on the topic of alleged Shannon accounts, there was an account that recently appeared on Twitter that I had many people sending to me, asking for my opinion, claiming that Shannon had returned to Twitter, and I looked into it, and from what I can tell, this is a fake account that's purely made with the intention of trolling. When this account appeared, many other content creators started reaching out to it, and they were questioning it to try and milk it for any information that could prove it to be Shannon, or prove it not to be Shannon, and I kept out of that for the sake of not muddying the waters or confusing the situation further, just letting those people do their thing. And from what I can gather, they've analysed the fact that there is no way for this account so far to prove themselves to be Shannon, actively refusing to take any steps that would prove them to be Shannon, even though they're trying to claim they are, and as such leaving them to just look like someone that is impersonating Shannon, with them apparently even getting the @ of Shannon's original account wrong, which makes them look like even more of a liar. Personally, I don't believe this person. I think it's a made-up account, and I doubt that Shannon's returned to Twitter or ever intends to. The Creepshow are allegations that have been so prevalent and popular within the drama community as of late that videos with millions of views are being released about this situation reignited when Tipster sent an Instagram DM to Shannon, and Shannon responded in all her glory, slamming Tipster, someone she told before not to publicly defend her because Tipster simply asked a question on her husband's YouTube channel. And Tipster shows all of this in a Twitter thread reading the following: "Looks like Shannon is back on Instagram DMs and she's not too happy. Yikes." Tipster then continues by showing their private messages with Shannon on Instagram, where Tipster said, "I don't know if you're reading messages here, and yes, I have been publicly critical of you and stand by what I said, but I am here to talk if you need to talk." To which Shannon responded, "You want me to talk to you after you commented on my husband's channel because of a provably false allegation of my husband apparently forcing themselves upon someone else. You really thought that was smart?" And Tipster just responds in all his glory, "Okay, I see how this is gonna go. Goodbye, Shannon. Have a nice life." To which Shannon does what Shannon does best, I guess. Insults her friends and backstabs them as soon as they don't align with every view she upholds. And shows her true colors here of how much of a bitch she is. Oh my god, really? You fold that easy? You're genuinely weaker willed than I thought. Boo hoo, Shannon didn't immediately talk to me the way I wanted her to, despite me publicly going after her husband over claims that aren't true and are so easily proven fake. Cry more. Literally, like that time you cried on stream because I donated money to you, and you literally said if I was in drama you'd respect me because I'd tell you to stay out of it. So dumb. Whatever, you didn't even have the balls to ask questions. And Tipster responds in the most logical and calm way possible. "Girl, you are mental, get help. You lied to all your friends and you expect me to sympathize with you. Then you went to Gabby Hanna and tried to destroy another friend. You're sick. Good riddance." On a surface level, these DMs just seem like a regular argument till you pay more attention to the context around them. Firstly, Shannon claims that Tipster commented on their husband's channel because of a provably false allegation. What Shannon's referring to here is explained and elaborated on by Tipster in a screenshot where Tipster shows that all Tipster said on their husband's channel is, "Why did you delete all your videos and rename the channel?" in question to their husband who changed their channel name, renamed it, everything like that, because they got called out for all of these allegations against them. It's simply a question that they asked, and I'd argue they weren't really making any sweeping claims with it, so the fact that Shannon tries to use this against Tipster is a really bad point. You've also got to remember the fact that Shannon actually told Tipster not to defend her. Of course he's going to comment on allegations when you refuse to even explain to him the context and tell him not to defend you on those points. He's a news reporting channel. Of course he's going to report allegations that have valid claim behind them. And even then, he didn't even report the allegation, as far as I'm aware, that you're claiming. Furthermore, in response to Shannon's reply to Tipster, "You're genuinely weaker-willed than I thought." Shannon presents herself to seemingly, the whole way through knowing Tipster and being friends, which they seemingly were, Shannon actually only thought of Tipster as weak-willed, and Shannon immediately brings up the fact that Tipster cried on stream because of being given money. Like, that's a bad thing for a guy to react like that because they're a guy or something. I don't know, it feels like a very outdated stereotype that men can't cry, especially after being given money. And also, they tried to correlate the fact that if you said you're in drama and you told Tipster to stay out of it, they would. You never told Tipster to stay out of it. There was no line crossed where Tipster betrayed you or backstabbed you. They even made efforts to contact you before and after their discussion about you. Shannon also says you didn't even have the balls to ask questions, though Shannon didn't respond to anyone when they asked questions anyway. I sent Shannon questions, I know many other YouTubers did. Nobody received responses. So Shannon's trying to make it seem like Tipster's a bad person for just magically getting a response from Shannon when she wouldn't have replied in the first place. Also, she claims that the claims against her husband are easily provably fake, but provides absolutely no evidence to show that. It's really hard to argue Shannon's side when Shannon doesn't provide evidence to support their case. However, on the topic of Shannon returning to social media, or not returning to social media, more recently a Twitter account has rose up claiming to be Shannon on a new account as her old one apparently got suspended, which isn't even consistent with the fact that Shannon's old account wasn't even suspended. Shannon deleted it when she was dealing with the drama with Without a Crystal Ball because she was being spammed, according to Shannon. And even if that wasn't the case, Shannon's account has been taken down of her own volition for a long time, and the tag was SM_Creepshow. More recently, Creepshow Arts, a Twitter account, claims to be Shannon and crops up claiming that their old Twitter account was suspended, and now they're back to defend themselves with absolutely no proof it's even them. Firstly, they post a bunch of things claiming that everyone else is saying they aren't real, just like people did apparently to a guy called Adam Driver. However, in response, someone says, "So, at Creepshow_Art is holding your account for you and has been public about being willing to give it back. They were doing it specifically to keep your account from being trolled by actors. Why haven't they given it back to you if you're real Shannon?" And the Creepshow Arts account says, "Reading over this now, honestly I'm kind of baffled. It's been complete radio silence from them, but they are following me." It makes no sense that if this was Shannon they wouldn't even reach out to secure the OG tag. However, Tipster also reached out to this account, and they shared with me quite nicely some of their DMs of the account, where they said, "Prove to me that you're Shannon," and the account says, "I love how you turned being told to disavow and don't defend me into some admission of guilt. Not like anyone could see the tidal wave of witch hunt coming and wanted to make sure no one else got hurt. Been dying to say that. That is all." Tipster follows up by saying, "Waiting for proof that you are who you say they are." And the account says, "I'll consider it. Honestly, the cons outweigh the pros." And Tipster says, "Still waiting for proof," and they provide absolutely no proof in response that they are Shannon. I think it's them saying the pros outweigh the cons that I find the funniest, because at the moment they're just being blasted by people claiming they aren't the real Shannon, and they keep claiming they are Shannon and making defenses for Shannon, but no one's gonna buy it unless they provide proof. So I'd say the pros outweigh the cons massively, as proving they were the real Shannon would prove that all of their claims were true, and would seemingly allow them to start giving themselves a defense. It would also make no sense that Shannon would never mention this account anywhere else. Honestly, from the fact that already claiming to be Shannon, I don't know what cons they're even referring to. But also, there's people saying, "Creepshow Arts, if it's really you, then go on Instagram that you reactivate and say, yeah, it's me," and they say, "Maybe." And although we can't prove it 100%, there's a whole bunch more proof that seemingly shows that this is a fake Shannon, and as such, nobody's really gonna trust it as a source. However, a lot of what they've said is really interesting and very bizarre. They've made multiple tweets claiming that everything posted by Lolcow was actually false. Them saying things like, "For Lolcow, Do you expect a troll board is telling you the honest truth, not looking for clicks and attention? Let me shatter one of their claims. They claim I accessed their website over multiple devices over multiple years with the same IP. This is impossible. The ISP will issue a new IP number every 30 days. My phone operates on a mobile network, not a broadband network. Even if my computers are on the same network, the fact still remains that each computer gets a different external IP and has a different internal IP address. Otherwise, the web wouldn't know which computer to send information to, so therefore it is completely impossible. This claim is untrue. There are multiple ways to fact check whether your account is actually the same account that's accessed something across the board, as 1. The cookies would show other applications and websites you've accessed through emails, accounts, etc. And many different IPs that you've used will all link back to the same general area at the end of the day. And the fact that they'd seemingly have an IP from the original Shannon, because Shannon spoke about locale before, it can be believed that it would just be the same IP that was used at that occasion, and they've just checked that they came from the same location. Obviously, locale hasn't provided 100% proof that this is Shannon, despite providing some evidence that seemingly implies so. However, obviously, as locale hasn't provided proof to show that actually 100% is Shannon that made these posts, we can't exactly guarantee the fact that Shannon is actually the person that made these posts, it is alleged. However, the fact is that these posts seem to line up very consistently with many of Shannon's behaviors, and the fact that Shannon's defense was that she was IP spoofed makes absolutely no sense. This account also claims that cookies don't do what people think they do, and that your IP changes anytime you lose connection intentionally or unintentionally. So the answer is simple: the troll forum is lying. This response, again, doesn't make sense, but some of their other tweets caught my eye a little more. Like them speaking about the Peaches drama and saying, you'd think after the Peaches drama, people would show some extra precaution when it comes to screenshots, but apparently not. Shannon not realizing the fact that if this was Shannon, they would be the one that perpetuated the allegations against Peaches, and this tweet would be an active admission that they lied about Peaches in that video. Furthermore, their second tweet on this also implies the same thing, when they said, Luke and Peaches 2.0. Fake ass screenshots and zero linking evidence, and a receipt video that's still a month plus with nothing. I'm waiting to hear it after I settle the legal side or handle the YouTube side. Again, this response makes absolutely no sense because Shannon hasn't taken down any of her Peaches videos, so it would make no sense that Shannon would be on Twitter now saying that these screenshots were all fake and had no evidence linking them, when Shannon was the one that perpetuated the screenshots that Luke used in some of his videos. This account also states something very interesting. Someone tells this Creepshow Arts account that Social Blade proves they deleted content and that all of this behavior is gross. And the Creepshow Arts account, in all their wisdom, claims that Social Blade proves their videos were removed and that they had people mass reporting their channel and several videos went down, and in fact the channel itself was almost lost due to community guideline violations as a result. Had to contact with a rep to get that fixed, also been trying to get the videos back. This makes absolutely no sense. If these videos were taken down by YouTube, they would show on the videos that were taken down that they were taken down by YouTube. It would make no sense that they say they're private. Furthermore, mass reporting the channel, I really don't buy that as a fact that they're claiming that their videos went down because of that, when it's very believed that because they deleted videos that only seemingly proved them guilty in the Emily Artful case, that it seems that Shannon took those videos down herself. Why is it that no other videos that Shannon's posted about drama or any topic she's covered have seemingly gone down that don't involve her stalking allegations, etc.? However, this account also had interactions with Emily Artful, where they were calling out Emily Artful and claiming they had all this evidence to prove Emily Artful was lying, and Emily Artful said, show me a proof that I've been a thorn in your side for years. Why couldn't you have mentioned that in our conversation in 2018 then? You can't because you're not Shannon, and I've never wanted anything to do with the real Shannon. And the Creepshow Arts account said, we rarely if ever had convos. You've been tracking Anthony for years, angry he left you due to your addiction, and you're vindictful. We've tried many times to help you, like when I shouted at you in that interview, so you would move on. Simple. This doesn't line up with the story. Once again, the Shannon account claims they rarely ever had conversations, but Emily Artful has shown conversations that she's had with Shannon. It makes no sense for Shannon to claim they never happened. And in a quote retweet to a person saying that people should report the account for being a personator, Shannon says, Emily's Goon Squad want to report this Twitter down to destroy the evidence I've been compiling to prove my innocence. This is the level we are at, people. This is one of the most stupid statements, because once again, you are impersonating Shannon. Obviously, people are going to flag you down. Secondly, destroy the evidence you're compiling. What evidence? You haven't shown a single screenshot that proves your innocence in any occasion. It's very obvious that this Twitter account is a fake bait account made to grab attention, and for some reason people are making videos with 40,000 plus views claiming these are real statements from Shannon. Emily Artful released a video today called Creepshow Art Did Not Work Alone, and this video presents a whole bunch more evidence against Shannon following in the vein of the previous allegations against Shannon. Emily starts this video with murder on her mind, starting by addressing the fact that Shannon had sent DMs to Tipster, in which Shannon claimed that it was provably false, that Emily claimed that Shannon's partner or Emily's ex-partner had taken advantage of them in an illegal way, forcing themselves upon Emily when Emily was intoxicated. Emily clearly explains the situation. Shannon's partner, which was at the time Emily's partner, was allowed into Emily's window, and while Emily was visibly intoxicated, she was taken advantage of. Emily explained that unless Shannon blood tested her, the claim Shannon made that the R-word experience was provably false is seemingly unfounded, as there'd be no other way to prove it other than if Emily had a blood test. Obviously, it's no surprise that the person who claimed that their IP address had been hacked for years claimed something like this to defend themselves, and the fact Shannon bashed Tipster in the way they did seemed very manipulative, and most people have highlighted that. But I do want to make it very clear that claim is still very much alleged, and more evidence could come out that could prove the opposite. I'm not in either way gonna shame the victim or harass the target until I'm aware of the full context, and until both sides get the opportunity to present their case. Though Emily then noticed the fact that the harassment she received in the past had lessened as Shannon's channel grew, with Emily later coming to the belief that Shannon used the Brita Filter account to make up an excuse for Shannon so that she could get away from the situation and the stalking of Emily and forget everything that happened and protect her YouTube career. Obviously that's all on skepticism, but it is a fair point. It does make sense, especially given the added context that Shannon was likely in control of the Brita Filter account based on the claim that it was apparently a child that had stalked Emily for 8 years. It seems likely that Shannon was lying, obviously, and feel free to take my opinion as a grain of salt here, but as someone who's brought drama to Shannon's doorstep and criticized them on multiple things, they aren't very good at being honest and transparent, so I don't really know if they are innocent in this situation. Though I will note how many coincidences Shannon claims there was, from the coincidence of her being hacked on her channel so many times to not be able to make community posts, to having her IP hacked for lolcow for years, to her sibling coincidentally coming out and explaining that Shannon had been a terrible person to them and it was likely Shannon had doxed them, to Emily Artful making her video presenting all of this evidence against Shannon from years worth of time that seemingly shows Shannon as a stalker, to Shannon's partner and the inconsistencies with them, to Hopeless Peach's experiences with Shannon, whereby Shannon had manipulated her and seemingly lied about her to try and ruin her career, and how Shannon is incapable of providing a defense and she disappears from all social media when she gets called out and claims she's just in a legal dispute and that she won't speak about anything till it's resolved. It's really odd that Shannon doesn't address any of this, and I do want to be fair to her and give her the benefit of the doubt, but when so much evidence is stacking against her, when so many cards are stacked against her, and it's basically all but Uno against her, it's really hard to say that Shannon isn't guilty of at least a lot of what's being called out against her. And in a situation like this, it doesn't feel like the claims being made have been overblown. There's just so much evidence that I believe even Shannon herself would make these claims without any regard for looking into them before making a video. Obviously, I mean, if she wasn't making the video about herself. Emily also side notes the fact that she believes that Shannon and their partner were likely not sharing all the information with each other, and Emily tells them not to point the finger at Emily on everything they don't know, but possibly each other. Emily starts then presenting evidence in rapid fire succession. But before she even does that, Emily opens up her evidence by confirming the phone and screenshots are hers and real, opening up her phone and even going as far as to show conversations with her mother. She then scrolls through chats and goes way overboard to provide proof that every single message she shows in her videos are seemingly real to the claim she's making, and as such it's very hard to argue that this evidence isn't real. But Emily also notes and shows a clip of the fact that one of the sock accounts that harassed Emily was featured in one of Shannon's videos for a point Shannon was making, which more than ties Shannon to this account that was messaging Emily about Creepshow Art, which I'd say ties her without a doubt to the stalking that Emily's experienced, though again, it's still my opinion. We can also tie this to the fact that back in the time, Shannon's partner also sent Emily a similar message that the stock account that Shannon was seemingly very close to, Shannon's partner themselves sending that message to Emily themselves. I can't lie, it's just one of those big coincidences again that Shannon's partner sent Emily a message that Emily was buying subscribers. After Emily blocked Shannon's partner, Emily is then DM'd by a throwaway account that makes the same claim that Emily was buying subscribers with evidence that really doesn't prove anything. And by chance, it's also a coincidence that Shannon has shown that account as an account that seemingly Shannon likely owned in one of her videos. The clip itself, Shannon doesn't recognize it as her own account, but the way it's presented, it makes it seem like it's possible she was using it as an example, and as such it might be possible that it is Shannon's account. Though obviously I believe with the evidence we have, it's more than plausible that it is Shannon's account whether Shannon recognizes it or not. Emily also dug up Twitter archives from the messages from her ex, showing that they were real, and also noting that in no prior message to her ex, she ever told her ex about the sock puppet account she was being harassed with. However, when she brought up to her ex the fact she believed their ex was going after them, Emily's ex followed up immediately with the response that they don't use any accounts without their face, which seems like something you wouldn't bring out of nowhere unless you had a guilty conscience, or if you felt they already knew you were the one behind the accounts. Emily also states that her local police department has documentation of Emily also calling them about this situation, which again makes it more likely Emily was telling the truth. I doubt anyone would falsely call the police years ago in an attempt to get their help with the situation. Emily then shows conversations she'd had with Shannon's partner's grandmother, explaining her experience being stalked to the grandmother. However, the message didn't go through, but once again reinforced the idea that Emily was actually being stalked. Emily also takes the time out of her video to note the fact that in the past she'd also sent another message that accused Anthony of possessing explicit images of Emily that were taken when Emily was just 15. There is no evidence to prove this claim so far, but Emily sending this text back years before this situation became public does support the claim. And although it's alleged, I'm sorry you're hearing so many alleges, but I've got to make sure that it's very clear that what I'm saying is still an allegation. If this claim is true, Anthony should be in prison. Not to say he shouldn't already, based on prior claims if they're true, but a claim like this could be tracked through hard drives, etc., and they could prove Anthony guilty in this situation. Emily continues to provide evidence that Anthony said Emily's voice would sound better on the track than what Emily claims to have been Shannon's voice. As such, it established the initial fallout between Emily and Shannon, which makes it seem more plausible that Shannon had a motive to go after Emily in the first place. Don't get me wrong, Shannon seems like the type to hold a grudge. And Emily then provides a crucial piece of evidence against Anthony and Shannon, almost like a smoking gun that breaks apart their whole story. Emily shows that she'd sent a previously unlisted, now private link to Anthony of her singing. Only Anthony had seen this video, which is proven in Emily's video where Emily shows that it's only been seen by Facebook 2 times. However, this video itself was explicitly mentioned by the BritaFilter account, who reached out to Emily and claimed it was a child that was stalking Emily for these 8 years. Putting aside the insane 12-year-old story that Shannon tried to use, the fact this account was aware of this post, but only Anthony, Emily's ex-partner, Shannon's current partner, was the person to receive the video, undoubtedly at least ties Anthony to these claims. I believe this is more substantial proof that either Shannon or Anthony was behind the BritaFilter account and covering up their story of stalking Emily. Emily then ends her video with an interesting perspective, that while Shannon hurt her and nothing will excuse that, Emily believes that Shannon may also be a victim to Anthony and had a lot hidden from her too. I do sympathize with Emily's concern here. Anthony, if he is as he's been painted, is not someone that's very trustworthy to look after people in fair ways, and very seemingly seems like a manipulative person that may be hiding information from Shannon, and could be treating Shannon in the exact same way that he treated Emily. Shannon won't become as sane if she comes out against her partner. However, Shannon should make the effort to at least try and hear out the other sides if she believes she doesn't know everything. Before this video begins, I would like to quickly state that this video is a condensed down version of my 3-hour stream talking about Creepshow Art's 2-hour 30 response to Emily Artful. I would also like to mention that my stream only covers about half of her video, and the POV will then cut to Augie's stream, mainly because YouTube took down my stream for child safety endangerment and then retracted that takedown later, but that meant that my stream had to end and I couldn't continue it, which means that thousands of people were left wondering where the fuck the stream went.
The worst thing she did was try and expose Edwin for being a closeted homosexual. That was the worst thing that I remember. She made a post where she was like speculating on YouTubers like sexuality, and she was like, he's probably gay, he's faking his girlfriend, he fakes it. He fakes it for his image.
We have Tomina.
Hello, RFC Nation. And Harley TBS Nation as well.
That is the worst thing I've ever heard. Yeah.
This is the collab nobody saw coming, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially, yeah, I think, when was the last time I talked about Harley? I can't remember. I think I
I
said something
think
mean
Only
about
over the
him last
dream
time.
stuff.
You've included clips from some of my content in some of your videos, but I think the last time you spoke about me was you mentioned me in a Tom Dark video for a cringe tweet I posted.
Oh, I see.
I can't remember. I
Yeah.
can't remember what I said. I think I remember it was like really dumb, and I look back on it and I was like, why did I tweet that? What were our only interactions, Tom? You blocked me on Twitter and then you unblocked me and followed me recently.
Yeah, I think I had you blocked after the dream stuff. I don't
Yeah, you
remember
did.
what you did, but I think it's something you did. I was like, I'm not speaking to this
I'm just too
succubus.
cringy.
Yeah, I don't remember what I can't remember. I
Everyone
don't know, but I
hated me
decided
back
to
then,
follow you
actually.
back.
I remember, like, every creator had, like, the extreme hot take about why Harley TBS was terrible. And now people are okay with me, which is surprising, to say the least.
I think I just kind of thought you looked and sounded like I'm Alex, which is still true. but
So
I
many
decided
people say
to-
that about me, and every time I hear it, it gets under my skin. I don't see the comparison
I think it's
personally.
true.
Before I go any further, I want to quickly take the time to point out how Emily talked about her relationship
Oh,
with
new
Anthony
mic.
on her YouTube channel prior to making this video. In her My Ex-Girlfriend Destroyed My Art video, Emily states that she has only had 2 bad relationships in her entire life, that being with a mutual friend named Sean, who she stated cheated on her, and the 13-year-old she dated when she was 17. She goes on to say this about all of her other relationships.
So that's a claim that Shannon makes later on in this video. Shannon alleges that Emily had an unhealthy relationship where she was 17 and dated a, I believe she says 13-year-old just there. That is, if true, probably something that's gonna damage Emily's reputation.
Penny was a beautiful, charming young girl. We got along incredibly well. She was exactly my type, both physically and mentally, or so I thought. And the only possible foreseeable downfall to our relationship at that time was that she was a little bit immature, and she was a little bit immature because she was 4 years my junior.
Emily released a response following this stream, alleging that she was actually the 13-year-old, and this was a video that was made as a sort of self-hate video. I'm not so sure on the validity of that, because that does seem like a more sketchy defense, but that all goes up to personal opinion, and if Emily can provide evidence to the contrary, I would be completely willing to accept that.
How is this relevant from her perspective, from Shannon's perspective? Why is this relevant to bring up?
The thing is, I don't think it is. I think she's literally just coming back to like spill
Character
everything
attack.
she has.
I
Yeah.
can kind of see in a way how Shannon could try and say that it's relevant because she's about to talk about Emily's relationships. It does feel a little bizarre to go in depth on this relationship. Like, I feel like Shannon could just say, Emily had 2 other relationships that aren't relevant to this situation, or briefly explain them. I feel like including a whole clip is unnecessary and feels more like a character attack, but I guess that comes up to personal opinion.
This is becoming a shit show.
Yep.
This video also postdates her relationship with her ex from her I Dated a Sociopath video, where she said that relationship was, quote, the worst she had ever been in, and that he scarred her as a lover, as a friend, and as a person, and that she has never gone through anything as bad as that or as traumatic as that.
This guy is really, really messed up, and I feel like we're cool now. We don't talk for kind of an important reason, which I will get to later, but you know, I don't hate this guy. I don't feel resentment towards him. I more feel I have sympathy for him. And I was really close to him at one point and felt really close to him. But I feel that closeness was completely fabricated just because he needed stuff from me. He injured me greatly. And, you know, subject of many great songs, thank goodness. But I'd never been hurt like that before. I'd never been hurt as a friend, as a lover, as a sister, as, you know, just pull around like that.
So I guess what Shannon's trying to do here is build up the kind of idea that because Emily hadn't mentioned her relationship with Anthony in the past, that she fabricated it.
Okay, so what she's saying is that she's made all these videos about shitty boyfriends, but she never made a video about Anthony. So
Yeah,
that's
until
sus. That's
now.
what she's saying.
It's
all right.
I kind of get what Shannon's saying, but also I feel like it's a bit of a false equivalence because, as Emily says, the stalking she was experiencing didn't end. While her prior relationships that she'd had, like the one with the sociopath, seemingly, as far as I'm aware, ended and they didn't have any more involvement with the sociopaths, so they made the video. Shannon knew about Emily's channel, Anthony knew about Emily's channel, and also they allegedly, according to Emily, were still stalking her. So I feel like the one thing you shouldn't do when being stalked is make a video while it's happening, talking about it, and I feel like that may be a possible reason why Emily didn't at the time, or didn't even mention it, but it's hard to know, and I guess that's going to be up to Emily to respond to and clarify on.
Emily was not abusing drugs as she stated, and this is known because Anthony himself has a history of past drug abuse before he met Emily and has a zero tolerance policy for that in his life. Anthony has been sober for over 10 years. We can call upwards of 20 people who have all had the same experience with Anthony because he's exceedingly cautious with drug use.
So she's saying that Emily couldn't possibly have been under drugs when they were involved with Anthony, so I guess she's trying to go against the SA claim, the assault claim by going for like the whole angle that Anthony wouldn't date Emily if she was on drugs. I think she says that because Anthony's had a prior relationship or prior history with drug abuse, and she shows a screenshot here of a chat. I want to see if I can.
Yeah, but that
find
does
it.
just prove that Anthony would date somebody with a substance
Yeah,
abuse,
I
abuse
agree.
problem. Like,
It's,
I don't know what the point there is.
That's
That
why
doesn't
I
really
want
make
to
any
see
sense.
the screenshot she provides. Okay, so this is between other user and Shannon. I'm guessing the other user is supposed to be Anthony. It's probably weird because you aren't straight edge. It's good that he's dedicated to a positive message, but for some reason the idea of getting a straight edge tattoo is weird for me. At least it's positive though. So Shannon's saying that he wouldn't date someone that has a history with drug abuse because he has a tattoo that says he's straight edge. Is that what this I don't get what this is. Am I
Jesus.
reading into this wrong? If I'm supposed to
Oh
get
my
like a
God.
tattoo that's like I don't do meth. Does that mean it proves that I won't date someone that does meth? I'm confused
I hate
what
when
she's trying to
YouTubers make
prove.
these like when they make these like hour-long videos, they just like spam screenshots, and then they're like, just read the screenshots. But then you read them, and you're like, well, what does this mean? Like,
The
you need to
prison
like
mate
walk
link
me
of
through this.
screenshots.
Yeah,
Fuck
literally, because
all.
like you're forced to just walk through this yourself, but then you're like wondering like, am I just being highly uncharitable or like
Who's winning?
really?
Okay,
no?
Nick. So Shannon has proved in a stunning and brave piece of evidence that she's provided that Anthony has a tattoo that says he's straight edge, which means he wouldn't date Emily and wouldn't Emily. That's conclusive somehow.
I want to dive into a pit of lava. I'm done.
It's
That is somehow
It's
that it
great.
manages to be less proof than Emily Artful has.
She
Social
hasn't
media accounts only
demonstrated
ran
that
between
he's cautious with drug use.
yeah. He's got a tattoo. Come on, Augie. He's got a tattoo.
However, when they were dating, she was dealing with intense mental health issues, of which she told Anthony. She has also posted on social media before, during, and after dating Anthony about her mental health history, saying she's bipolar, has BPD, was schizophrenic, has OCD, suffers short-term memory loss, has an apparent brain injury, and more. Here are some of the posts. Ha ha ha. Actually, my OCD isn't as bad as the kind they flash on television.
Why do we need a reading of this? If she's got OCD, that's fine. You can just show the screenshot. Why do we need a fucking reading? What the fuck?
She then
Cancelled.
posts this on December 7th, 2009. Emily has found out negative referrals in high school heavily reflect on colleges everywhere and feels foolish for not thinking of this before. So basically, I'm fucked for college right now. She follows it up with this comment, as in, put on your record and if enough accumulated to the local police files, meaning that she had assaulted enough people that it might have been put on police record.
During this time, when she was living with Anthony,
How is that relevant?
Wait, I'm
behavior
so
would cause
confused.
Anthony and his
When did she start assaulting people? Wait, Emily has assaulted so many people it's on police record. Is that like a quantity?
Apparently.
You have a source for that claim?
What the fuck?
Is that what
It's
she
just this
said?
Facebook post of Emily saying it's
I'm so fucked for college now. So she's just beating this shit out of so many. Like she's just gone in the streets. She's like fighting around the world. Like she's just like.
why do we
Is that what they mean by
care?
assault?
Why is this relevant to the fucking video?
Was it put on her permanent record in high school?
But this video, honestly, I'm beginning to think this video would be 10 minutes if it was just actual shit that mattered.
there were other moments during their relationship where Emily publicly threatened Anthony, sexually harassed other women, and we have contacted the people who were present at that.
What?
Harassed. To be clear,
Sexually
harassed.
harassed.
But I mean, that's still fucking big. But like,
Where's
not
where's the
assaulting.
evidence?
Yeah, there needs to be some of that.
Why is she just saying these crazy things without like fucking?
No documentation.
Well, this is creep show art.
However, during the relationship, Emily took it upon herself to get a tattoo of Anthony and herself as chinchillas on her arms, with the
I don't care. What the fuck?
As chinchillas.
This is very strange.
She got a chinchilla tattoo of her and Anthony.
What?
And the chinchillas weren't doing heroin. So how can we really believe that she was even
my
shooting
God.
up?
Why?
She only owned one chinchilla
shit,
at the
you're
time, named
stupid.
Archimedes, and she did not own a female chinchilla. Though later she would get one and claim this tattoo.
Why do we care if she owned a chinchilla?
Wait, what if the tattoo artist was Romeo Lacoste?
She would say that the chinchilla was her and Anthony's kid. She continued this action with all her other boyfriends.
Why do we fucking care?
Here's her doing it a year or so after her and Anthony dated with her next boyfriend, Carl. This is another Twitter account she had under the name Annabelle Lee. This was another band name of hers. The reason they broke up was because of her erratic behavior and nothing else. Emily also lied when she said how the breakup occurred, saying
Well,
that
isn't that
Anthony's friend
convenient? Well, she said the reason they broke up is because her erratic behavior and nothing else. Like the way she says that is like that sounds like every person breaks up and is like, well, it was his fault or it was her fault. I was perfect.
who she calls Brandon, whose real name is Bryce, told her that she was a worthless whore who he was going to curb stomp and kill. This never happened. Instead, Anthony broke up with Emily himself twice. However, Emily wouldn't listen to him and kept coming to his home. Shortly after this tattoo, their relationship ended. Anthony broke up with Emily. The reason they broke up was because of her erratic behavior and nothing else. Emily also lied when she said how the breakup occurred, saying that Anthony's friend, who she calls Brandon, whose real name is Bryce, told her that she was a worthless whore who he was going to curb stomp and kill. This never happened.
How do you know that?
She just knows. She was tracking Emily through the CCTV camera. She saw the altercation.
It's also important to note that Bryce is an autistic man who loves movies, video games.
Why do we care?
So much so that during the time frame Emily is talking about, Bryce would often wear halo armor that
If
he
she's
built
saying
himself.
Emily lies, why does it matter?
Wait!
Oh my god. Wait, play that back.
What the fuck? It's also important to note that Bryce is an autistic man who loves movies, video games, and art. So much so that during the time frame Emily is talking about, Bryce would often wear halo armor that he built himself when he was out and about.
Why do we?
Guys, this is the smoking gun that Peanut was looking for. The in Halo armor.
Dude, he's got the Halo drip, bro.
Come on, guys. I want Crypto outside.
Why does it matter if he's autistic if the story never even happened in the first place, according to her?
It was kind of like
Nice.
cosplay before cosplay was a thing. She also
Why do we
goes into
care?
frame his interest in the Batman movies, specifically Heath Ledger's Joker, as being a sign of his insanity, even though he's simply a film buff who loves Christopher Nolan.
What is going on? Are we at Comic-Con now? Like, what the fuck is this? Who gives a shit?
Why are we
Who
talking
gives
about
a fuck?
autistic dude? I'm so confused.
We're 13 minutes in, and I still don't even know.
Alright,
like,
We're
what-
talking
what the
about
video
how
is
Emily
about.
Artful called out this guy who's autistic who said he was gonna curb stomp her, but apparently he likes Halo and he's a fan of Heath Ledger, which Emily Artful says he's weird
He also does
for.
cosplay, and yeah, it's like, what the fuck?
Like I had mentioned before, Andrew and his friend Brandon discussed at length about going into their old high school and shooting it up. They also completely idolized
What?
Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. They just thought
Wait, God forbid a film major like a critically acclaimed movie and career-defining role. He's autistic, so he must be crazy.
Oh,
What,
okay.
she claiming he's ableist. if he
Well,
said
wait,
he
that's
was...
Emily talking, right?
Yeah, and then this is Shannon's screenshots over it.
So
Sorry, Shannon's
Emily's
text
point
over
was
it.
that Brandon likes I'm lost.
Emily's point was that Brandon and Anthony said they were going to shoot up a school, and also he was a fan of Heath Ledger's Joker. And then Shannon's trying to say that Emily's ableist for thinking that's bizarre. Emily believing her self-harm such attempt on her life on her ex because he made her feel crappy. More on this in part 13. That's
Part 13?
that screenshot's so low res you can't even read it. Look at that. What the fuck?
Wait,
And this one
full
says
screen
it's full screened. That's
what the fuck is
that's-
this?
And it's on max quality. I can get it. What the fuck? You can't read that. And then this one says, "I'm so fucking not pretty that he'd rather see her naked than me. He'd rather be with her than me because I'm so fucking ugly." Well, thanks a fucking lot. I thought we had something because we were so fucking close, and now maybe I ought to my fucking self.
Once an addict, always an addict.
So we're willing to acknowledge that Emily now says that she was an addict, but apparently she was lying about it in the past. Shannon, was she an addict or wasn't she an addict? What's the consistent story?
Oh, and by the way, 5 months sober today. That's the reason for the subject matter. To all my friends who helped me along the way, I thank you. I can only hope to be a good friend to other addicts, just coming off their high horse. No pun
I'm
intended.
leaving the
Emily has confirmed in
heroin
November 2012 as her
Jesus Christ.
What's his
Hashtag
name?
welcome back, heroin.
Hashtag pick a side, Emily. Heroin or YouTube?
Emily has confirmed in November 2012 as her sobriety date, specifically from heroin, multiple times on her YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, and more. All the posts I would be citing about her sobriety date being in 2012 are from after 2015, which is when she is now claiming she actually got sober from heroin.
So I have thrown several different numbers out there for my sober date because it's impossible to accurately pin down due to my relapses. Okay, that doesn't support
wait.
Shannon's point.
Well, actually, I think that would make it easier because if you relapse, then you're no longer sober at that point, right?
So she says I should add that I'm six years sober from hard substances. But in the previous screenshot, she says she's 6 years sober. Been in recovery for 3 years. I've been clean, obviously, for 3 years. This video was released prior to September 2016, according to Instagram. This directly lines up with the November 2012 sobriety date she gave in these blog posts. So she's saying Emily Artful got sober in November of 2012. Like, is she gonna try and link this with their Emily claimed that she was on heroin when she was assaulted point?
If she was really using up until the year before making all of these posts, joining YouTube and writing the song, why would she not be honest and state that? Why parade around an untrue sobriety date for the past 5 years, especially when nobody was asking?
Why would Emily Artful parade around a false sobriety date? Because she's insecure about the fact that she didn't get sober because she didn't want people to know that she'd relapsed. Emily discusses now that she's relapsed multiple times. I don't think many people relapse and then they're just very happy to go to people that congratulated them on being clean and go, "Oh, I relapsed again." I could understand why you would lie about sobering up. I don't know how that's related. So she was gonna meet up with Anthony.
And that someone is Anthony. This would be the first time they were meeting up after the breakup and her getting clean. They didn't end up meeting up on this day, as seen in this post, as well as this Facebook interaction between Emily and Anthony from his now defunct account.
How does that prove they didn't meet up, though? Like, people still say, "I miss you," after they meet up. Like, people say, "I miss you already," and shit like that. Where's Anthony's messages? to provide this context. She's replying to him, but we have no messages.
Meaning they didn't meet up until December. Emily was also dating another.
I'm putting too much thought into it, aren't I? I'm expecting Shannon to be able to make a comprehensive argument.
When Emily was actively using prior to November, according to that same blog, she was living with her ex-boyfriend, not at her father's home. She only moved back into her father's home sometime after March, about 6 months after getting sober, according to another one of her blog posts saying as much. I've had to move back in with my dad, which isn't so bad because he's kind of lonely in this house all by
So, again, I just want to raise this point. Why does Shannon have all of these fucking blog posts if she wasn't stalking Emily? Bro, who the fuck is documenting blog posts from people from back in, what is this, 2012?
She stalked her after the video came out to prove her innocence. That's why.
Part 3
One thing that Emily states in her video is that online harassment
Maybe we
was
can
never leveled
slow
at her
down.
until after she started working with Anthony professionally. She doesn't directly give a date, but she does say
Her posts on social media go directly against this claim and show that Anthony had nothing to do with her harassment. Because she posted a meme, finding out someone is impersonating me on 9gag and is using my real name about me from my Facebook and being a jerk. Turns out I have multiple cyberstalkers that have been doing this shit since I quit YouTube. So Emily claims
Let's
someone
keep
else
playing. Let's
stalked her
do the
in
next one.
2015. Oh, I see. So Emily claimed the harassment started when the song released. But there are screenshots showing Emily... So the song released May 7th,
it
right?
was never leveled at her until after she started working with Anthony professionally. She doesn't directly give a date, but she
But this post is from May the 28th? Wait, Shannon... Wait, what? May the 28th.
does say it started when they worked on the song Stardust together, which would.
The song came out May 7th. That doesn't... The year's 2015.
But she does
The
say it
song
started when they
came
worked on the song
out
Stardust together, which would.
2014. That doesn't disprove it. That's a year before.
They had worked on another song, Autumn's Moment, in 2013. She was not in the music video for Autumn's Moment because of the online harassment she was already receiving for posting content under the name Emily Sugarfruit.
Oh, I see.
So she's saying it started in 2013.
She's saying harassment started before the song's release. But that doesn't disprove that Shannon would have harassed her. It proves that she might have been harassed from other parties.
Did she say Creepshow was the only one harassing me, or did she say I
don't
was getting
think
harassed?
so. I'm pretty sure she said that other people have harassed her or stalked her, right? Because if so, that is a bit questionable. If Emily said this is the first time I've noticed harassment, but Emily was harassed in the past, then...
I'm gonna be honest, I kind of stopped giving a shit. See you guys later.
Nice.
On the Sugarfruit channel, Emily ended up doing a couple of controversial things, like posting an anime review naked in a bathtub. Emily states now in 2021 that she was high on heroin when she did this, but has established that cannot be true. The video of her in a bathtub caused a lot of anger in the community because the YouTube anime community is filled with mostly men who saw Emily doing that as a cheap way to get subscribers and attention.
What up, YouTube? G4 Leader here once again, back with another late night video for you guys. And tonight's topic will be females in the anime community, and how the act when they, what made me want to talk about this shit is because I've been noticing a trend. The thirsty ass on YouTube ran this female away, and I've noticed that trend with a lot of female YouTubers, that the male YouTubers would hound the fuck out of these females reviewers and shit, whether they review anime, video games, etc.
What the fuck is this relevant?
And I feel like, do they think, oh, well, I'm gonna subscribe her, I'm gonna add her, I'm gonna message her, and then she gonna give me some pussy? Like, what the fuck do you think is going to come of this from you subscribing her?
I just got back. What the fuck is this?
We're talking about a motherfucker who's talking about Emily Upfoot in the buff naked doing a One Piece review, and all these people are subbing to her because they want pussy or some shit. What the fuck is this, and how is this related to Shannon stalking Emily?
See, some McFly in my chat says Emily accused Shannon of leaking this video, that it was never public, so that's why it's relevant. So she's proving that not only did the video exist, but people were highly critical of the video.
But Emily's talked about this
evident
video,
right
though.
here.
Emily says no, she has spoke about this, and she never claimed this didn't happen.
You don't know her age, you just know she likes anime and she's half naked.
But anyways, it wasn't. It was a One Piece review from a girl. And I'm like, well, it's a female One Piece fan.
Why are there like 7 men that are coming in here talking about seeing naked woman in a bathtub?
And the bitch is in a bathtub naked.
Man, this bitch was naked, and this ain't what I want. Oh my!
And I'm not even gonna tell you who it is. For one, I don't know who it is. I didn't even look up the YouTube name. And two, it doesn't help by promoting that shit because it just only substantiates the problem I'm having.
Okay, this video is absolutely fucking hilarious.
Emily
Holy
said
shit.
in chat, he looks so disappointed in me.
Oh my god.
What the fuck is up with this hoeing shit? Like,
Oh my
literally, I saw the girl and I watched the full video of her in the bathtub doing One Piece episode.
I watched the whole thing. I couldn't leave it.
I bet halfway through my trousers.
More.
And it was a legitimate review. And I'm just sitting there going, why are you in the tub? It's like, this is what you get when I don't like an episode, man, so I get to see you naked in the tub. because you don't like an episode. And see, there's different types of hoeing that annoys me.
Oh my god.
Different
Are we gonna get an analysis on hoeing now?
Viewing
God
an episode
damn.
of One Piece for the sake of views. At that point, you are a whore. As much as people like to talk about celebrities and shit, how
That's
they,
fucking
how they do all this fucked up shit.
Laying it on thick, dude.
This is my New Year's. This is everything I've wanted out of New Year's. This is fucking incredible.
Best New Year's ever.
Doing this for even less money. That makes you a cheaper hoe than the other hoes you make fun of. What the fuck?
Oh my god.
Wait, why does Shannon play so much of this video?
There's another one?
Why
this guy looks like somebody I know. Who is this?
Why have we got 3 different men that are confirming that Emily Hartwell was naked in the bathtub making an anime review? I don't give a fuck.
I do. Play more.
Cool ass video. Bitch got naked in the tub
Cool
and made
ass
a video about that shit,
Based.
about One Piece. Like, that's sick. And everyone
Oh my god.
This guy's horny, bro. I respect
These
it.
fucking
was just like,
incels
oh.
are so devastated by this
No, this is
woman in a
happy. He's like,
bathtub
this is good
reviewing
shit,
One
right?
Piece.
He said, this is
He's
good
saying this
shit.
is
I know
good
it's
shit.
bitch got naked in the tub and made a video about that shit, about One Piece. Like, that's sick. And everyone else was just like, oh, I'm so thirsty and shit. And like, and this motherfucker's just like, oh, leave her alone. Oh, leave the poor bath girl alone. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, shut up, you fucking simps.
Damn, stop crying. I don't want to see any more of these fucking, oh, leave the poor bath girl alone. She was just trying to make a video. Shut the fuck up, man.
Yeah,
Get
shut
the
the
fuck
fuck
out of
up.
my face.
Get the fuck out of my
Guess
face.
what, you guys?
Another one?
What is
Oh,
this?
this homeboy had an illustration in the background on this one.
Why? Why are there so many of these?
Oh my god.
This is honestly, this is the
This is
highlight
the
of my fucking
funniest
career.
Hold on.
This is my
the
career from now
funniest
on.
fucking exposed video I have ever fucking seen. Holy shit.
Jesus
This is my year, bro.
Christ.
This made my fucking year right at the end. This video changed everything for me. What? Bro, Shannon came with the sources. 4 independent journalists have confirmed Emily Hartwell was naked in the fucking bathtub in an anime.
Homeboy sitting in front of a picture of a girl drawn in a fucking bathtub to complain about her doing an anime
PNG.
review in her bathtub. What the
They're
fuck?
making butt naked anime reviews now?
I hope so.
Oh, my God. Oh, by the way, she says
Out
all these
today.
videos are linked below. So you can still see these videos. They're in the description.
This is a piece of YouTube history that needs preserving, alright?
Right?
Wait. Are you telling me she sourced these? This is their only thing she sourced was these? We've been asking for evidence all video.
We spent 30
This is what we
minutes.
get a source
We
for?
spent 30 minutes begging for evidence, and now we get 4 independent sources that confirm Emily Hartwell was naked in a fucking bath.
Yeah.
Where were these sources
Jesus
before?
Christ.
I didn't give a shit about a chinchilla.
It was crazy. Now the thing
It's
about
crazy.
this is, like, we gotta be serious. The girl was desperate. Let's keep it real. She got
Wait.
Damn.
Damn.
Wait.
somebody butt naked in the tub. A female is going to work. She's getting views.
Female?
Female.
Not really going.
He's like, I
about it
know
the
it's
right
gonna
way.
work because it worked for me.
my god.
But it's just I still don't understand. They let bathtub go in there,
5
man.
sources.
Yeah, they let bathtub. They let bathtub girl in there. Like, what's her name?
Is this
They did a
after
podcast
video?
about this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They made the naked Emily Hartwell
Rue
podcast.
girls, Peng. What? They let.
She was paying.
Call her sugar tits.
Good at sugar tits. What is this? Why is this our source?
Oh my
The next
God.
clip is going to be, you know those 3 kids that debated Fortnite? They're going to be like, these women are ruining anime.
This is great. This is great. These are the sources
I mean,
we
I don't
needed.
like. I
You know
really
what?
don't.
Shannon's right. Shannon's redeemed herself. This really proved to me that Creepshow Art was someone worth bringing back to the community.
You know.
Makes me thirsty though. I mean, she does.
What
Oh my god, bro.
They're like salivating. You're like, man.
So we get the
Not
fucking
gonna lie,
wow.
though.
Tasty, man. She looks tasty.
Yeah, she does.
She
that's
looks
why I know sugar
tasty.
food comes
Hey,
from.
What is
what?
this?
I feel like that. The thirst know me. That's what she is. Like she's an all around gem. That's the thing.
Alright, tipster.
6
Wait, that's not
sources.
tipster talking? Is he
I can
stroking
see
his
the
cock while he's
views are
recording
just-
this? What's happening?
Cracking up.
Why?
There was a girl who ate D batteries. Okay.
That was just
And
I'm gonna briefly talk about this, and then I'm gonna go right. Sorry. You know, the whole.
The fuck?
Dealt with. The only bad thing about this situation was Joe Ten's stream. I personally think it's fucking horseshit that he had to get rid of
Yeah,
it.
fuck Joe Ten.
Yeah, Joe
fuck
10
that
can suck
guy.
my entire cock.
It wasn't like it was
Fuck
just
Joe
people in
10.
comments. It was just,
I like Joe 1 through 9. Joe 11's pretty cool too.
Is this another video? No!
Whenever.
Why? Who is this? Why is their voice?
Why is every
Oh, this is
motherfucker
the Joe
homophobic?
10 guy.
Wait, this
is the
isn't-
Joe 10
Wait,
guy
it's
you were
Joe
talking about.
9 videos.
Wait,
I
what was
always
the guy's
love-
name? Hold on, what was the channel name on screen just now? What did I just say?
It was King Joe 10 something.
It's Joe
It's
10!
Joe 10!
Yo, and he's homophobic.
King Joe 10 Cheeto fan 9.
Wait, what's his name? What's
Wait,
his name?
can we talk about how he crossed out subscribe and put no next to it?
Whoa, wait. Yo, hey, nice source, creep show. Yeah, good one. Nice source there. Nice evidence. Good one.
So
God.
a lot of people sent me this video.
Another one.
When it was out on
9
YouTube,
sources.
sent me this video of a girl that's naked in a bathtub talking about a One Piece episode video. Okay? And when I saw it, I
Okay.
saw a thumbnail. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay. I've never seen a girl naked before. Oh my god.
We know you haven't, mate. Don't worry. You don't need to tell us.
Titties. Oh, as Black Bond would say, social fucking rejects. These motherfuckers that went in and troll her and did all this bullshit because, oh, she's a whore. Oh, she's naked. Talking about a One Piece. People are talking about, oh, I'm a bully. Oh, the anime mafia is a bully. We bully people, but the so-called anime community wants to send trolls and bully her and just say all these crusty, grimy shit like, oh, you a whore.
Oh my
Anthony and I lost her a huge client because we allegedly wrote a negative review saying all her brushes were dirty and she was unhygienic. She later disproves this herself via Twitter. She contradicts her original statement by showing the screenshots of her conversation with Anthony saying she's about to start work as a makeup artist after she gets her certification. But then in the tweet itself states that she never actually got her license and simply advertised herself on social media and got clients via Craigslist. Meaning that there would be no way to leave a negative review for her services, seeing as she only got clients via Craigslist and social media where reviews
Yeah,
cannot be.
you can leave reviews on Craigslist.
Yeah, so Shannon's just completely okay. So
Um,
Emily says it was actually a post under one of my posts on an old social media worded like a review. Okay.
Left. I also found the social media she's talking about that she used to showcase her makeup on, and it's theretroface.tumblr.com. The screen name, The Retroface, was her original URL for her current YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/TheRetrofaceYT, it goes to the Emily Artful channel. She only posted to this blog 5 times for about a month between September and October 2014. She was always the person featured and never showed any client work, besides her doing a sugar skull on her boyfriend for Halloween. This would be 2 months after she stopped doing cam work, meaning she would have had to be homeless at the time, according to her own story. No negative reviews are left anywhere on this blog, and most of her posts have 0 notes on them. I couldn't find any other social media with this name on it besides her current YouTube channel. However, she did have a makeup YouTube channel that was never uploaded to, that was made January 2014 under the name Emily MUA. Emily mentioned in her I Dated a Sociopath video that she worked at a beauty supply shop at this time.
I worked at a salon that was adjacent to this fancy bar where he worked, and every so often me and my boss, she would come pick me up from work and we would go next door to this bar and drink. Now I don't know if y'all know this, but I currently live in the San Francisco Bay Area. This was a salon boutique store. We sold professional products to the public, so anyone could come in and buy professional product, like any kind of hair care. We have makeup, little goodies too, and we had a salon in back. And I actually live, if you guys didn't already know this, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. I had to come to downtown Menlo Park and stop at this place called Off the Grid. They go up and down the peninsula,
which was Peninsula Beauty in San Mateo. This was confirmed by the fact that Emily used a company branded pen in her $10 art supply challenge video, which is still live on her channel. This is further confirmed by the
fuck? What the fuck would you
I'm not a
notice
stalker,
that?
but I noticed the branding on the pen she used in this video.
I'm not a stalker, but I noticed the pen
Holy-
she was using was
Also,
aligned
did
with
you
a
note
brand
that,
very
like-
close in the area that she may have happened to work at. Okay, so Amy, proof she exists. Oh my god, this is a section I'm interested in. We're about to see that Amy's real, guys. She's real all along. She wasn't Shannon.
This part is going to be brief, but Amy is not a reference to Emily. Amy is a girl who used to harass me online who I originally met on Stardoll.com when I was in middle school. As I say in the video, but Amy did not grow up in San Jose with me. We never knew each other personally, and she was someone I strictly knew online who lived states away from me. Emily tried to state in her video that that video was secretly about her, that I was setting a backstory up to one day say that Emily was actually Amy, and by simply calling her Amy, I was referencing her because according to her, I was trying to leave breadcrumbs online to paint her as a malicious stalker.
Isn't that a coinky dink? That right there is the most passive-aggressive shit I have ever read, and is also one of the many breadcrumbs that she started leaving behind that she had a quote-unquote stalker named Amy. I think it's funny that she picked the name Amy. I think she deliberately picked a name that was very close to mine so that if I ever came out with allegations, she could be like, see, I even chose Amy because it sounds like Emily. And of course, she picked all the things that she did to me, so then I couldn't even come out if I wanted to, because then it would seem like I was copying her instead of her copying me.
That is not the case, and it's also very stupid. The video I put up, which is still up, has various details that do not match with Emily. It would make no sense for me to say that Emily and I were friends online ever, seeing as we never knew each other outside of her being a friend of some friends and one of my ex-boyfriend's exes before I even had
How does this prove that Amy existed? Like, Okay, so she's saying that she wasn't referring to Emily because some of the details don't line up. But if you're already lying about someone, I'm sure you would just exaggerate the situation at that point just to make it more dramatic for your content. What? If you're already willing to lie about someone's whole character, I'm sure you're not gonna give a fuck about lying a little more, you know?
Me stating that she grew up states away from me also does not align with her being Emily. Seeing as Emily went to school in California, and I know people who know her, it would make no sense for that video to be about her.
I know where Emily went to school. I had people who knew her. I know where she was. Wait, whoa.
Wait. I had her address.
All the things that she did to me, so then I couldn't even come
I
up
knew
with
everything about her
seemed like I
personal
was copying
details.
her instead of her copying me.
That is not the case, and it's also very stupid. The video I put up, which is still up, has various details that do not match with Emily. It would make no sense for me to say that Emily and I were friends online ever, seeing as we never knew each other outside of her being a friend of some friends and one of my ex-boyfriend's exes before I even had a crush on him. Me stating that she grew up states away from me also does not align with her being Emily. Seeing as Emily went to school in California, and I know people who know her, it would make no sense for that video to be about her.
In order to prove my case.
What the fuck? Why have we got the TikTok fucking AI
Wait,
voice?
what the fuck? Yeah.
In order to prove my case,
insane.
here are the cringy emails that Amy and I sent to each other in middle school.
Why are we
This is
looking
rough,
at
man.
DMs she sent of Amy in middle school? Okay,
What?
so how does this prove it was Amy? This could be fucking anyone. Green Angel 454 at aim.com. Okay, you're so pretty. Lucky. I love the pic. I would give you one, but all of them are from a year ago, and no, I'm not 15. I'm lazy, so I kept the date the same. I'm 13. Subject, hi sister. Okay, here is a pic. Lol, I have my arm around my guitar. Lol, pic removed.
What the fuck are you reading? It's making
How-
me uncomfortable. I don't want you
it
reading
makes
that.
me feel uncomfortable. How does this prove that Amy's real? This is just a fucking email thread. Hi, sister. Again, from some person we don't know. From censored out. Okay. Lol, I don't think I'm pretty. Apparently, kids at school don't either. I'll send you another one. Lol, I have a
Jesus,
lot. Lol.
self-deprecating
Deleted
much? Holy shit.
How does this prove Amy's real? This could be from fucking anyone. Green Angel 454 says you are pretty full. Tell the peoples at your school to go away and beep off. Lol, I don't think I'm pretty. Apparently kids at school don't either. I'll send you another one soon. I have a lot. What do these emails have any fucking relation to
Why
anything?
is she picking these conversations to show? Like, what is like?
How does
why
this
these?
prove Amy exists? Who is
Yeah.
Green
I
Angel
am
454?
so glad that I tuned into this shit because now I know not to bother with this bullshit for
It's
my own
insane.
channel. Thank
This
you
is
so much.
insane.
A waste of time.
Lol, all guys named Cody tend to be hot. What the fuck? Why do we care? My dad, before I got grounded, said I was a dope smoking goth freak, and that just pissed me off to no limit. I miss you so much, but there are two types of hot guys: nice hot guys and conceited hot guys. Love you,
What the
sis.
fuck is
In
your audience
depression
talking
right
about?
now. Call back later.
No, he's reading the text.
Oh,
These are like Shannon screenshots that prove Amy
I thought you were
exists.
getting I thought you were getting groomed through your super chat. What the fuck was that, dude?
Yeah, that's the donations like fucking grooming him, dude.
Like, what
No.
are these donations? Holy shit, dude.
Telling me about all these people called Cody that tend to be hot.
Yeah. This video is so insane. It's literally like turned Harley's entire audience into groomers. Instantly.
Wait. Why did I just
Therefore-
get an email? Oh my god, my stream just got removed for the child safety policy. What?
You just got owned? What the fuck?
I get shit on
Hi,
you.
Harley TBS. We want to let you know our team
Get
reviewed
shit
your
on.
content and think it violates the child safety policy. What?
Wait, yeah, you actually got a TOS ban. I just loaded it up.
This stream has been what?
Wait.
Copyrighted audio or video because we received a complaint. Did Shannon flag my stream down?
Well, I'm
Wait,
still up.
what?
If you disagree, appeal here. Well, obviously I fucking disagree.
Wait, that's so AIDS
What?
though.
What? I just
Wait.
got deplatformed.
Can you access the VOD though? Like, or are you fucked?
It won't even let me appeal it. It won't even let me appeal it.
Bruh.
We realized you may not have known this is a violation, so you didn't get a warning or strike. Well, I didn't get a warning or strike, but my fucking stream got taken down. I can't appeal it.
That is actually
Fucking YouTube, man.
That is actually so
Bro,
ass, though.
I'm committing child safety right now. Damn.
You're committing
Like, look.
child safety?
I can't
Sorry, guys.
I can appeal it now. I can appeal it. Why was my video? YouTube does not permit young minors to live stream without supervision of an adult.
Wait, wait, that's why you got hit.
Oh.
Wait, that's
Yeah, because you said you said you were
Wait.
you said you were
No, but 17-year-olds are allowed to
Oh
stream on YouTube.
no! What the fuck?
Fuck off.
But you are being supervised. We're the adults.
I mean, okay.
Get your on. Yeah, tipster's like 50.
Yeah.
Hey, fuck you, asshole. I'm not that old.
Oh,
I haven't seen the midlife crisis going on. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Tip's just like, fuck you. He just starts going. Wait, that's actually so ass though. Wait, did you get a strike?
No.
Or you?
But it got taken down.
They just ripped
isn't it under 13 is when they
yeah,
do
it's
that
under 13.
shit?
Can you signal boost my tweet because that fucking sucks?
Yeah.
What?
I'll retweet it after this game.
That's
Holy
pretty AIDS.
shit! What? Bro, Harley TV has big child safety abuser. Shit.
Yeah.
Well, geez, don't look like a fucking infant on stream, dude.
That's so AIDS.
So wait, what is the rule violation though? You can't be under 18 and streaming?
No, it's actually it's
13.
under 13 years of age.
I just got flagged for like no reason.
Remember, this is the Matt's what it is shit. This is what was
so
the result
stupid.
of that.
Yeah, I just got falsely claimed to be under 13.
At least YouTube
and
finally picked a side. This is what they wanted, right?
That's such a YouTube thing, you know.
Yeah.
Fucking take down my stream for child safety.
That's so dumb.
Well, I mean, I didn't expect much from this platform. And
Yeah,
I'm
just
still
a tip
holy
for the
shit, my
future.
tweet has 80 likes in 1 minute. What the fuck?
There's not a chance of me being pregnant. Moderate. I don't know and I feel foolish. I need to get tested. Please don't go spreading the news around school to the ones that go to my school. I just thought I'd let everyone know I'm an idiot. And yeah, Zach doesn't want to believe it. I don't think. I'm a little bit upset that I'm just like every other mom who's all by herself without a spouse to help her. At least Dave said he'll be there for me. Though I don't love Dave as a husband or a boyfriend for that matter. I love him as a best friend. He knows me better than a lot of people and he'll go with me to get tested if Zach refused. I just kind of wish Zach would. Yeah.
2 days after that post.
She posted that she probably had a miscarriage because she got her period. Meaning that 3 days after this person broke up with her, a person that she would blame for her self-harm publicly online and stated he was the reason she wanted to kill herself, she told him she was pregnant. While I don't know if this could have been true at the time, seeing as she said this so quickly after the breakup, then stated she probably miscarried later, it leads me to believe she faked this in order to get him to stay with her. She went on to post a blog about how he abused her and forced her to do things she didn't want to do, only to later in that same blog say he never harmed her or hurt her. She then accuses him of abuse when they do not get back together in a post called Why Is It? She talks about how he took her life away and how he's evil. She also alarmingly posted this blog about
Why are we still looking at screenshots from 2006? Why are we talking about Emily Artful's
Underage nudity.
perspective on underage nudity from 2006?
Underage
Oh my
nudity.
god.
After her ex, she then writes a journal about how he's a liar, how he lied about having phone sex with her, how he's a piece of shit, and then immediately after says they're friends again. And then a month later says he's dead to her and abusive. In various twists, she also states at one point he tried to hit her and that she is scared of him. Also that he would touch her in ways that
This is still 2006. Wow.
she didn't want to be touched to get his. These are absolutely accusations of abuse and assault, but in those same quizzes and posts, she would later retract those statements, saying he never
Does she talk about anything in modern day? Because I don't care about shit Emily Artful. This might be an extreme take. I don't care about Emily Artful's takes in 2006. And I don't think they
But
accurately
Harley-
reflect the person
Harley,
she is now.
She has a history of making false claims.
Ah, I
Which-
see. Because in 2006 she said
Wait,
something.
what? I think your stream just got reinstated. I just got a notification for it.
What? Am I back live again? The fuck?
You're not back live, but the VOD is up on your channel.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
your VOD's back.
Oh, fuck. Let me download it quickly. 1 sec. Is it? I don't see it. What the fuck?
I
Past
got
live
a
stream?
notif for it.
There we go. Found it.
Yeah.
Let me download this. So YouTube has removed the takedown, I guess. Awesome. That's great. I love that. Let me see. Appeal grant. That's great. That's awesome. That's great. That's great. Now I'm not live. Awesome.
That's my favorite thing that fucking white girls say. I love that for you when they're being sarcastic. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
I'm a white girl, to be fair.
I said I would address Tipster, so this
Here we go.
That's the
Uh-oh.
motherfucker at my VC. Am I gonna have to like turn on you and like feed you to the dogs midway through the stream? Feed you to Augie's enslaved
No,
audience?
you'll be feeding the dogs to me, motherfucker.
do anything.
Oh my god, I hate this.
Tipster said that if I was able to prove that I didn't do what I was being accused of, that he would apologize to me. And to that I say, fuck you. You disgusting person.
What?
You malicious.
No.
Yourself couldn't scroll down far enough on Emily's Instagram and find the multiple posts that debunk her story that are
They don't debunk her story though.
still live.
By the way, when she says that I harassed her husband, you want to know how I harassed her husband?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I left a comment in the discussion section of his YouTube channel asking why he deleted all his content and
Oh, I
renamed the
saw
channel.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
How
what I
could you
did.
do that?
How,
So unforgivable.
how
Oh my
harassing.
God.
She also
How
says
could
I'm
you do
really
that?
bad at get this. She also says I'm really bad at doing research, right?
Yeah, you're an
But
amateur
I'm
at
still
oath.
able to
Damn it.
find her husband's YouTube channel to leave that comment when he went out of his way to try and hide it.
Let's continue. What else does she say?
Oh, wait. Real quick, to Mimi reminding everybody, she told her friends not to defend her, then ghosted everybody.
Yeah.
Literally.
And
Why are
she
we not
wouldn't
talking
give us
about the fact
anything to
that
go off
Shannon's
of to
like-
do our research. So, like, what the fuck are we
Exactly.
supposed to do?
Shannon's like, well, Tipster didn't stand by me. All he had to do was scroll. And then it's like, you said provide counter evidence to anything. And then she's like, No, just don't defend me. Of course you're not gonna fucking defend her. She doesn't have the right to then turn around and be like, wow, Tipster didn't defend me.
I even told her, can you just like prove it to me, just like in private? I understand maybe you can't talk about it publicly. Just let me know as your friend that you have something.
Just
it's off the record. And she's like, I don't trust off the record. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah.
Edwin, do you date men?
Okay. Tipster, banish journal, bro. Creepshow got you, bro.
Ready?
Hey, I may be closeted gay, but you're a journal, bro.
Nah.
Good one.
There's literally nothing else to say to that. It's like, nah.
It doesn't matter what you say, you're gay. Creepshow proved it.
Okay. You have a problem with that?
No, I'm gay too.
Are you? You suck dick?
All
All right, okay, Edwin.
Shut the fuck up.
Edwin,
Okay.
Holy shit. Please stop. Oh my god.
Edwin, we have all corrupt.
I'm so fucking tired of that.
Jesus.
What's your birthday?
Edwin says the most unoptical shit every fucking stream.
We have corrupted his mind so much, dude.
Alright, you, Harley,
Okay,
you, do not answer that.
alright.
Edwin, you stop asking questions.
I'm not
Everyone,
going to.
change the fucking subject.
Finish the video. Finish the fucking video.
So, Creepshow Heart, who at this point you probably know better than your right hand, who I'm sure you've all got very acquainted with during COVID. Shannon has been accused of a lot of things, and pretty much everyone knows what they are at this point. Shannon was accused of stalking Emily Artful for several years, running a lolcow account where she shit-talked all of her friends behind their back, making them sound like really bad people, and showing herself to go against all of the morals she upheld by using a plethora of slurs, doxing one of their siblings, and more. All of this behavior on its own was absolutely disgusting, and when most people found out about it and Shannon told them not to defend her, it really didn't look good for her. Then Shannon came back with this response where she got mad that people didn't defend her. Like, I get it, sometimes innocent people say don't defend me, but I don't think you can exactly get mad at people for not defending you after you tell them not to. But Shannon's response was pretty bad. I went over it on a call with people like Turkey Tom, Augie RFC, Nicholas Diorio. It was awful. The video doesn't address many of the points, goes for character attacks over actually responding to claims made against Shannon, doesn't address the lolcow points at all, and a lot of the evidence that Shannon uses is just incorrect, alongside being from several years ago, making it look even more like she stalked Emily than it initially looked like. But Shannon did make some fair points against Emily. There were fair arguments that I wanted to hear Emily's response on. Luckily, Emily's new video aims to spread light on many of the mistruths that Shannon spreads in this video, raise defenses for many of the arguments Shannon presents against Emily, and to prove Shannon wrong on so many points that Shannon's whole video becomes practically obsolete from a narrative perspective. Emily's video, I'm Done Shannon, is 1 hour and 30 minutes in length. Obviously, for brevity's sake, I'm not going to cover everything in that video, only the main focal points for things that I think are important for this video. So if you'd like to see the video in its entirety, I'd suggest going to watch it on Emily's channel, as it'll expand upon many of the other points Shannon makes and shows Shannon to be an unreliable narrator. With that being said though, let's get right into it.
Half of the, quote, evidence she supplied was from long past deleted or defunct accounts and videos, things she would have had to archive when they were first available. She took posts I made as a child, a mentally ill child that was going through constant and drastic psych medication changes, evaluations, as well as multiple misdiagnoses, and she used this information to attempt to smear me now as an adult. Because as we all know, the things we do as children directly relate to the kind of adult we will become. So if you were dramatic on the internet when you were 12, then that must make you a liar as an adult. Sorry about the heavy sarcasm there, it's just such a ludicrous notion. The YouTube channel A Copy Art made a fascinating discovery of this really interesting clip from one of Shannon's past videos.
It's fucking wild how people treat this literal child online. Like, there is a creator who is literally 14 who people want to call every name in the book because she acts like a creator who is 14 years old. She is 14 and people are having post threads about why she is the worst person in the world. And I'm just sitting there like, that's a child, guys. People often forget that pretty much until you are about 25, your mind is in a constant state of flux and you are constantly learning and and changing and growing into yourself. People act like who you are and what you posted when you were 13, 14, 15, like that represents you for the entirety of your life, and that you are going to stand by it to the end of the world.
What Emily's referring to here is the entire segment of Shannon's video that I and other people mocked to shit on a live stream. The segment dedicated to proving Emily has a history of spreading false claims, bringing up posts Emily made in 2005 or earlier, around the same years I was born, as evidence of who Emily is as a person now and why she is an unreliable narrator. Obviously, to most people that would already seem insane, and you'd hope that Shannon would agree. And surprisingly, Shannon's so obviously going against the morals she upheld in the past that despite there being clips of Shannon talking about how kids' statements shouldn't be used as proof of who they are as a current person, Shannon still goes on to make this argument in her video, making her look much worse and like she's intentionally trying to make Emily look worse by bringing up points that even she doesn't agree with against Emily purely to attack Emily's character. It's obvious Shannon's main focus with this video is to negate all of the claims made against Anthony, her romantic partner, by Emily. However, the defenses Shannon presents that mean that Anthony should be cleared of any wrongdoing and make it impossible, as Shannon says, for Emily's story to be true, are easily refuted by Emily and make Shannon look like she was intentionally lying about aspects of the situation, which again does not look good for Shannon.
And now we get to this part of the video, the part where I found messages that I believe corroborate my retelling of the night my rape occurred. Aside from me literally showing you guys my phone, Shannon herself actually confirmed that these messages are real by using them as evidence in her own video. So we know now from both sides that these messages are from Anthony. For anyone who is still skeptical, I'll include a clip of my actual phone scrolling from the very top of the messages where Anthony identifies himself all the way down to the messages we're about to discuss. While I was skimming through old messages between Anthony and I stumbled upon a discussion about an illicit video I had sent him. This conversation took place on August 6th, 2014. I made a joke about Anthony having a fancy mustache and a glass of wine, and he mentions he doesn't drink. His fervent sobriety and refusal to be around someone who isn't also sober is something that is referenced in the tiny little paragraph dedicated to my rape at the end of the legal letter sent to me by Shannon's lawyer. So Anthony mentioning he doesn't drink does corroborate that belief, but only in a sense. 8 months earlier, in December of 2013, which is actually almost a full year after when I originally suspected the rape took place, I tell him that I've been drinking like a fool, and at that point in time I would have been using heroin or Suboxone. Suboxone is a crutch drug to help people get off of heroin by mimicking its effects in the body while not giving you the addictive sense of intense euphoria. I even mentioned taking Suboxone in that DeviantArt journal that Shannon used in her video as evidence against me. Actually, I said I was prescribed Subutex here. Subutex is just like Suboxone, except it doesn't contain naloxone. Naloxone being the drug that counteracts the pleasurable effects of an opiate. So users who take Suboxone and attempt to use heroin will immediately be put into withdrawal. Subutex is just pure buprenorphine. Buprenorphine being the drug that mimics the effects of opiates within your system without actually getting you high. Except you definitely can still get high. In fact, I even say it kind of gets you dopey in my DeviantArt journal. Not really the words of a sober person. Subutex can be even more dangerous to mix with alcohol because it's just pure buprenorphine. I just wanted to make that clarification. The cardinal rule of being on Suboxone is you do not mix it with alcohol. Every addict knows this can be super dangerous, almost as dangerous as mixing heroin and alcohol. AmericanAddictionCenters.org says alcohol and buprenorphine are central nervous system depressants. Taking them in combination leads to an enhancement of their effects. Side effects that might occur with buprenorphine use can be significantly increased in intensity and number when the drug is used in combination with alcohol. These side effects include issues with nausea, vomiting, and constipation, headache, blurred vision, dizziness, and fainting spells, increased sweating, heart palpitation, increased or decreased blood pressure, and an increased potential of myocardial infarction, decreased motor coordination, poor response times, and extremely impaired thinking processes, including issues with judgment. My first stint of sobriety started in September 2012, but over the course of the next few years afterwards, I would be an on and off user. I would use Suboxone for a couple weeks to keep from going into withdrawal, and I would get up on my high horse and talk about how I was sober and how my life was so much better sober, and then a few days later, I would stop taking the Suboxone and go pick up. And so I wasn't really sober, but during the course of this time, there were tiny little glints of sobriety, but it obviously wasn't real sobriety. And now as I slowly piece this puzzle back together using messages and medical records and even some evidence from Shannon's own video, I realize now that I would have either been drunk and on heroin or drunk and on Suboxone, and either way, the side effects are intense. It's no wonder I had difficulty piecing this back together at first when I knew in my hardest of hearts, in my fucking core, that this happened. I tell him that I've been drinking like a fool, and that I wasn't drinking because I was trying to party, but because I was trying to escape, meaning escape from reality. From then on, I send him a few incoherent, clearly intoxicated messages complaining about an inappropriate encounter I had with my then boss. I didn't mention it here, probably because I was upset specifically about my boss, but this also would have been right in the middle of Bob and I taking a break from seeing each other. In the messages, I tell Anthony to call me, and that's where the conversation ends. I believe that night is when I asked him to come over. Due to all these factors adding up perfectly, I now believe this was probably the night the rape took place. The next conversation we had was initiated by Anthony, who sent me a sexually suggestive message, which I responded to in a sexual manner as well. This conversation took place only 5 days later, and at that point I would have just started seeing Bob again. Even though it was a stupidly classic "we were on a break" situation, I still felt guilty for having slept with Anthony and embarrassed that I was high and drunk. But I also felt guilty because I felt like I had led Anthony on. I didn't want to immediately shut down his sexual advances here because I felt like I had led him to believe we could now engage in a physical relationship again, and I was also afraid of him blowing up at me. So I kind of just slowly segued into talking about how I had started seeing Bob again. And I know there's going to be a very small percentage of people who will lose their mind over this, but this was Anthony's choice. I was very clearly a total train wreck here. So many things were going on in my life, and although he denies ever being around me when I wasn't sober, these messages illustrate that that just isn't true. This man, by his own admission, was sober and sound of mind, and he chose to have sex with me while I was intoxicated and not in the right frame of mind. She claims that my real sobriety date was in November 2012 and uses the lyrics from a song I wrote, sang, and posted in September 2016, specifically about my relationship with heroin, as confirmation of that date. The lyrics are 3 years in November, and she says that's further proof that my sobriety date was in November of 2012, except November 2016 minus 3 would be November 2013. She also did this using a clip from my "I Dated a Sociopath" video, which I uploaded in May of 2016. Did Shannon not know math? I think it's much more likely that she knew her math was incorrect. She was just hoping that no one would go back and fact check her on it. This is just yet another example of her throwing screenshots up on the screen and claiming one thing when the screenshots actually show something completely different. Not only that, but here's a court summons I received about a drug DUI I was charged with, showing the offense date as 12/8/12. With this evidence, it's obvious I was still using after the date that Shannon claimed. I was even using at the beginning of my relationship with Bob, which was in June of 2013. But you absolutely 100% have witnessed me picking up drugs, using drugs, not limited to just heroin.
It was awful. It was really difficult. I mean, to this day, I think about it because it was hard, especially in the very beginning, and seeing you. I mean, I didn't even know about the nodding thing before I saw it in person. I was never super comfortable, and it was awful. Yes, I was there for the heroin use.
This was initially an important and focal point for Shannon's defense, trying to present Emily as someone who'd lied about the sexual encounter between them and Anthony because it couldn't possibly have happened because Emily claimed to have been under the influence, but Shannon says that Emily couldn't have been because her sobriety date she'd paraded around publicly was not the same. Emily goes in depth, highlighting how Shannon had somehow done the math wrong, which is a little questionable as is, that Shannon just happened to do the math wrong on likely one of the most important points in defending such a serious argument. But also, Emily goes in depth about how Anthony had not only lied about never engaging with Emily in any way when she was intoxicated, because Emily had chats where she'd spoke vocally about being under the influence and Anthony had continued the conversation, but also Emily shows a sexual conversation between her and Anthony after Anthony had discovered that Emily had been under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. Obviously, that completely completely shatters Shannon and Anthony's defense that Anthony wasn't aware of Emily under any influence of drugs, and also that he would never have engaged with her if she was. Alongside the fact that the dates were completely wrong that Shannon provided, and that Emily provided proof of a DUI from a later date showing that it was entirely possible that she could have been under the influence at the time of the sexual encounter. The sexual encounter goes completely back to a he said, she said, but with way more evidence falling in Emily's favor. And the fact that Anthony would lie about ever engaging with Emily under the influence is quite concerning. Now, Anthony could always say that he'd forgotten about this encounter, which would be a surprisingly lucky coincidence, considering if he was as against drug use as he claims to be, he would probably remember that someone he'd engaged with had been taking drugs. It's incredibly scary how much evidence falls in Emily's favor in this situation. The fact that she has texts leading up to what she believes to be the event, including the fact that she mentions the fact that she was on drugs, which completely negates Anthony's defense, but also that she has proof of sexual encounters with Anthony despite him knowing that she had been under the influence on certain occasions. Not even to mention the fact that he would lie about knowing if she was under the influence, which really does not look good for how much truth he's telling on the entire rest of this accusation. But obviously it needs to be said that no one but Emily and Anthony know what happens on that night. That's something that will always likely remain a he said, she said, that will never truly be proven either way. And obviously I'm not going to make a claim either way because there simply isn't enough evidence for me to confidently swing my opinion either way. But I do think it is important to mention how much Anthony has seemingly lied about the supposed event that he claims didn't happen. It should be left up to you, the viewer, to decide how you feel on this situation and to take the evidence as you will. Though I think it should be said that people should not be theorizing on this event anymore, or trying to push people like Emily to keep talking about something that's likely so tragic towards them. Nothing more is probably going to come out of this conversation, and it should be left here instead of bringing it up as a constant reminder to the people involved. Emily's video also serves as a way of negating many of the character attacks that Shannon makes against Emily, one of those mainly being that Emily has accused many people in the past of, as Shannon puts it, abuse, and as such Emily is an unreliable narrator. Except Emily raises a fair point with why that's just complete bullshit, and Shannon just pulled the abuse that these people did completely out of her ass.
Though I must point out that Shannon's claims of who I did and did not call abusive were flat out wrong, and another example of her drawing conclusions by filling in the blank. A teenaged Emily over-dramatizing a long-standing tiff with another person does not an accusation of serious abuse make. There were times I didn't get along with someone and made the very common mistake of just saying thing bad instead of really looking into the nuance of the relationship. This does not equal a formal accusation of abuse. So Shannon, let me fix your little infographic really quickly. There. That's better.
Once again, Emily refutes this point with testimony that many of the people on this list that Shannon has accused Emily of accusing of abuse were simply not claims that Emily made of those people, which once again breaks apart one of Shannon's bigger arguments that's a character attack that many people thought was a legal defense for Shannon, and makes it much harder for Shannon to once again make Emily seem like an unreliable narrator. Though Shannon tries. One of the bigger points against Emily in Shannon's video was the claim that Shannon made that Emily had dated a 13-year-old at 17. Obviously, this would be reprehensible, and most people did immediately get a little concerned when Shannon made this claim, mainly because she had a clip of Emily admitting to doing such. And while obviously Emily that many years ago does not represent Emily now, it's still something that would be a justified concern for many people to have, and would warrant questioning towards Emily as to whether this was actually the case.
And the 13-year-old she dated when she was 17. She goes on to say this about all of her other relationships.
So that's a claim that Shannon makes later on in this video. Shannon alleges that Emily had an unhealthy relationship where she was 17 and dated a, I believe she says 13-year-old just there. That is, if true, probably something that's gonna damage Emily's reputation.
Penny was a beautiful, charming young girl. We got along incredibly well. She was exactly my type, both physically and mentally, or so I thought. And the only possible foreseeable downfall to our relationship at that time was that she was a little bit immature, and she was a little bit immature because she was 4 years my junior.
Emily released a response following this stream, alleging that she was actually the 13-year-old, and this was a video that was made as a sort of self-hate video. I'm not so sure on the validity of that, because that does seem like a more sketchy defense, but that all goes up to personal opinion, and if Emily can provide evidence to the contrary, I would be completely willing to accept that. Emily responds to this claim in this video in a much better way than she responded to previously, Emily when Shannon made this claim. When Shannon initially made this claim, Emily's response publicly was just that the roles were switched and didn't really provide any evidence to actually confirm this, which made it really just fall under an Emily versus Emily situation. It was very hard to know what the actual truth was, but Emily's come out with some evidence that defends her side and makes it seem like what Emily said, the role switch, was a lot more likely, with Emily even texting the person that was supposed to be the victim to expound upon what actually happened and prove the age gap really was flipped.
I want to briefly touch on a clip that Shannon presented in her video. It was a clip of me discussing a relationship I had when I was 13 with someone when they were 17. In this specific story time, I used the control reversing tactics I had discussed earlier, so I was discussing it as if I were the older party. What Shannon failed to include is this clip earlier in that same video. So that's why I feel that a 13-year-old who was just about to turn 14 and a 17-year-old who had just turned 17 isn't that big of a deal. You're all essentially still being taken care of by your parents, and you're still relatively at the same maturity level. I still have a lot of complicated feelings about this person that I was discussing in that video. And I feel like, yes, the relationship was still inappropriate, but that was more because of other power dynamic reasons that I won't go into. And I absolutely don't condone anything of the sort. But my general feelings around this person are complicated. But this person was not and is still not a terrible person, and we still get along to this day. I just really wanted to clarify that this person and I are much closer in age than originally portrayed in my video. It was a running joke among our mutuals at the time because the age gap at first glance seemed a lot larger than it actually was. This person obviously realizes that the relationship was inappropriate in nature and has since owned up to it. We've discussed it, and I don't hold any ill will against this person. If anything, I still feel embarrassed about how that interaction went down. I still really don't know how to feel about all of it. I know this person is anonymous, but still something within me felt that needed clarifying because I do still care about this person.
Obviously, if this really is to be taken as Emily's presented it, with Emily being the 13-year-old and the other person being the 17-year-old, with Emily saying that the age gaps are actually much more close, being more 14, 17, which is still a 3-year age gap, still obviously concerning nonetheless, I do feel like this claim kind of gets cleared, and the fact that Emily got them to basically testify through those messages that it really was the case as Emily presented it. While there's no direct mention of the age gap in that conversation, and because that person's anonymous, we can never know for sure. Because there is more evidence to Emily's side, I'm leaning towards believing Emily on this claim, and unless Shannon has something to the contrary, I don't see any other reason why not to. But it should obviously be stated that even if this claim genuinely was true about Emily, just like I said on the live stream, it wouldn't negate Shannon of wrongdoing. This is a very popular tactic from people like Prismate Luke, and I guess maybe they learned it from Shannon. The two-quote fallacy is a technique whereby you criticize the party that's criticizing you to make their criticism towards you hold less weight. But even if Emily was completely guilty of this heinous amount of actions, Shannon would still be just as wrong, and so would Anthony. That wouldn't be a defense or excuse for what actually happened in the situation that Emily alleges they were assaulted by Anthony in, and these character attacks should not and would not affect Emily's testimony on claims they made about Shannon.
I want to touch on some of what Shannon claimed about my relationship with my father and about my living situation. My father and I had a difficult relationship during my active addiction. There were many times he would tell me that I wasn't allowed back into his home if I was using, but then renege on that weeks or sometimes even days later out of concern for me. This is absolutely commonplace among parents who are struggling with a child in active addiction, and I don't blame him for what he felt he had to do back then. You were also there when things were starting to perk up and I got that job at the optometry place. And then I was fired. You were there. You either were the first person I called.
It was like, and I said this before, I swear to God, you couldn't get a break. A little bit of hope. You just a tiny bit. You got the job. We were so happy for you. And not 2 weeks later, you got fired. And I was overwhelmed with rage because I was like, what happened? What happened? I didn't know. And you told me that your stalker, who you had told me that you had a stalker, like I think before we'd met, but it was sort of unclear and it was sort of an on and off thing.
I had the stalker before we met, but I told you about it when we had met.
Yes. Yeah. It wasn't like you were hiding it. It was just something like, hey, there's a person you should be aware of. I don't know who it is. someone contacted them saying they were a customer and sent them, from what I remember at the time, had sent them the video. It had nothing to do with the camming. It was that video. And they said, okay, well, we don't really want to sift through this because I think you'd probably contended that it wasn't actually a customer, that it was your stalker, but they're like, well, we don't want any drama. So thank you. Goodbye.
Which is fair. You know, I understand why.
Emily then interviews Bob to get more confirmation on her story about what happened when she was fired from her job, explaining that she was fired not because, as Shannon said, her camming, because someone had allegedly, a stalker, sent the indecent video, likely the bathtub video, to Emily's employer. Emily obviously told their employer that it was their stalker, and their employer let them go anyway because they didn't want to deal with it, which totally makes sense. But the fact that Shannon changed details to be camming to make it seem more unrealistic or impossible that this could have happened is really weird, and once again only looks bad on Shannon's front. I wish Shannon's video had more thought put into it if she was going to take this long to make it, to actually consider whether what she was saying made sense, and whether Emily could refute it as easily as she had. I find it really weird that Shannon changes so many details in this situation so blatantly, and actually just misquotes Emily at times. Like in Shannon's video, she actually puts quotation marks around the word camming to make it seem like Emily said she was fired by her employer for the camming work. But Emily never said that. Emily said it was an illicit video of some kind. And yet I'm still surprised that this situation somehow links back to a video of Emily Artful naked in a bathtub doing a One Piece review that got Emily cancelled by a bunch of troll anime creators who were afraid of a woman's body. How is that genuinely an integral part of this situation? Is somehow one of the biggest questions to be asked out of a situation with this many serious allegations.
Once I got into therapy, I learned two very important things. One, the relationship I had with Anthony was unhealthy. And two, the sexual encounter was a rape because and only because I was intoxicated when it happened. In the PDF letter that their lawyer sent me, Anthony even admits to a sexual encounter occurring after our breakup. I believe he did this because there is evidence of us planning meetups and speaking with one another long after our breakup. That way, if it ever went to court and I came forward with all of these messages, Anthony could say that he openly admitted to having a sexual encounter with me.
This is an important final note and probably the last clip I'll include in this video from Emily's video, mainly because it does highlight that Anthony admitted to a sexual encounter after their breakup, which does give more credence to the claims Emily made against Anthony, and it's very important to recognize that. I feel this is also a great example of Anthony only admitting to the bare minimum he can get away with to avoid any major claim, recognizing that Emily likely had messages of him admitting to sexual encounters or acknowledging that a sexual encounter was going to take place. Anthony admitted that he had, but he's very careful not to admit anything else, and very clearly skirts around the line of admitting to anything involving alcohol or drugs. Obviously this is my own opinion, but it does feel like Anthony maliciously left out some of this information purely to make his situation look better and his side more credible, like leaving out the fact that anything involving drugs had ever happened, despite the fact that, as we've seen in Emily's screenshots, it very likely did. Though this wasn't the only video released against Shannon's response, as Nicholas Diorio also released a response video which included a previously undocumented secret document that Creepshow had created as a prior version of this script that includes a lot more hostility, but wasn't published and instead was somehow gained access to by a fake Creepshow art that apparently got it from Shannon. I don't even know how that's possible, but I was aware of this document before it becoming public because another content creator I know reached out to me and told me it existed, but because it came from a fake account it was hard to know it was the real Shannon. But considering information in it is undisputably private information that we now know was in Shannon's video, it does seem believable. I'm not going to play you that video in its entirety or even many of the clips from that video. I'd suggest you just watch Nick's video because there's so much in it that I couldn't include in this video in the time that it takes to make these videos. Check it out. Me and Nick are colleagues and I really appreciate some of the work he does for this platform, so go check out the video on his channel. But this is just some of my favorite moments from this video.
I want to thank absolutely no one. Tipster is a diseased hack who literally reached out to me for content that he disguised as an "I'm here if you need to talk." That much is obvious given how hard his dick got when he realized he could monetize my response to him privately. Why reach out in earnest feigning friendship when you can monetize your friend's downfall? Super appreciate how much thought you put into that though. Bet those views were worth it. Totally kidding, there's a reason everyone on YouTube surpasses you, and it's because your videos lack quality, insight, or anything worth commending. Thank you, though, for the post that, if Creepshow can prove she didn't do this, I will apologize. I'm waiting, ... letting me know that I was taking too long to prove I never owned CP. I am so sorry that me proving that Emily was slandering me took too long for you. I am sorry that I wasn't able to make this video on a fun little time frame for you so you could add it to your 10 upload a day schedule. That must have been so hard for you that I wasn't able to hire a PI and find all this information that proved my innocence in a day or two. I bet that really sucked, that you just had to sit there, getting comment after comment describing how you should kill yourself for things that were completely fabricated. Oh wait, that didn't happen to you. You just sat there and talked about it happening to me, your old pal Shannon. Weird. I do not accept your apology. I will never accept your apology. You are a terrible fucking person who I supported, and I hope you fucking realize that money means a lot more to you than actually being friends with people and being decent. You say you're a journalist? Everything I showed is public. Hell, Emily literally changed her story in front of you and had things on her Instagram that actively showed her lies, but you were too much of a crybaby to find it. Did you even pay attention to what she was saying in her video? Or were you just excited for the dog pile? Your Twitter @ has you being called a journalist. Sure, man, I buy that. Even bigger ups for not only sending people to harass my husband, who didn't fucking rape anyone and never stalked anyone is his goddamn life, as I proved, but doing so yourself. Do those couple of likes make you feel like a real man with a big boy brain and not a spineless little coward who cries online like a pussy? You are a champion for that. So happy to have known someone who just gets his little shrimp cock hard for spreading false allegations. You're so fucking smart. Amber Heard would love you.
Team Tipster's the best. This shot's for you.
Side note, you owe my husband the biggest apology. Saying you would apologize to me for reporting on false allegations that were centered around him is like me tweeting that I would apologize to your wife for saying you murdered my entire family falsely. I fully did not expect you to realize that, given how stupid your statement was. So here I am telling you, you owe my husband an apology. You owe your fans an apology. And mostly, you owe the fucking world an apology for making such repetitive, lazy content that lacks any inspiration or passion. You really should be ashamed of yourself for simply persisting on this platform.
With that being said, if you enjoyed the video and all of these clips, you know what to do. Big number go up, subscribe to the channel, that would be highly appreciated because my number is directly related to my worth in society and my value as an individual human being. You can also check out my Twitch if you'd like to watch my streams. I might still be streaming when you're watching this. Go check it out. But really, the 100k is what I'm aiming for. I'd appreciate all the support to get me there. With that being said, I will see you next time. If you sat through the whole 3 hours, I love you. Please comment Hershey's Kisses, and I will give you a special reward, I guess. I don't know. I'll come up with it. I'll come up with something, I promise. I'll see you next time. Peace.
Says she wanna rock with a nigga like me. I'm a stylish guy. Spend a little guap with a nigga like me. We can catch a fly. Says she wanna rock with a nigga like me.